We are, yes, we are.
Correctly?
I'm so happy right now. You have no idea.
If I stand up, am I still in frame?
No, we lose you.
Yeah, I'm just in a brown kigurumi.
So, yeah.
What are these?
What are these? Well, it's this interesting thing where it's like we were trying to figure out a way to celebrate 1 year of the Wednesday Club. Thank you, Chief Note. We were trying to figure out a way to celebrate our 1 year, that we've managed to keep this show going despite reality on any level. And it occurred to me that we have a friend of the show, Manzi DeYoung, who's a costume fabricator, and she does stuff for superhero costumes in movies and television. She's worked on stuff like, she's working on Black Lightning, did a little work for. She's done work for Suicide Squad. The movie Suicide Squad. She's done stuff for The Flash. She's made some Flash TV show.
Right?
The upcoming Titan show. She's super talented and super cool, and I was like, hey.
Burning Man friend, we go to the burn with her.
We go to the burn.
She seems amazing.
She's amazing. She's wonderful. And eventually, I'm planning on dragging her on to talk about stuff. What?
That's cheap.
Ha. So while Matt Key figures out his mic, my mic is on, I'm pretty sure. My mic's on. I'm fine. I got my shit together.
I'm waiting for Chief to throw something in there and make fun of me, saying it's my fault.
Normally there's a test.
I asked her, while they're getting this together, I asked Manzi if she would make us, I've always been a fan of the notion I wanted pajamas or kigurumis of characters that were just a little too awkward to get made by the corporate media. So I asked everybody what kigurumi they would want if they could have any kigurumi.
And I wanted a bulldog, but I also love Lockjaw, so I'm Lockjaw.
You got a Lockjaw kigurumi.
I got my little tuning fork.
And your Hank is very
Yes.
Hank McCoy.
I'm so pleased. Look, I've got my little britches.
I like that you say britches.
Well,
They are britches, but I just like hearing the word britches.
Yeah.
He's wearing garters in theory. So
Oh, fair enough. Stars and garters.
Oh, my stars and garters.
Oh, my stars and garters. And I did Kid Loki, the purest Loki of them all.
As only you can. Hold on, Stan. I love this piece right here. She actually sewed a cloak into it.
So good.
So there's like a little
And the
comfy-
white collar thing area.
God,
Thank you, Steph. Thank you,
damn it,
Erica. Yes. Hello.
Hi.
God.
Erica heard
serious?
kigurumi and just like bamfed in.
This
She's
is-
like, I hear a kigurumi. I must join chat.
This is Alan Moore. We're being super serious today because it's Alan Moore Day.
Yep.
And Alan Moore means we're going to be super serious, guys.
We're wearing the skins of our icons. I think we're pretty Alan Moore.
That's about as Alan Moore as you can get. Special thanks to
successfully
Manzi. You can
turn my
follow
mic
her
on?
on Twitter. She also occasionally Twitch streams, and it's fun.
Who,
and
Manzi?
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Every
I
now
know
and
she
then.
Twitch stream.
Every now and
Oh,
then.
that's right. She does.
Every now and then.
Oh, and her.
Oh, wait. You guys have to help me with this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're going to do
Please
it?
put my glasses on.
Oh my God.
Oh, my God, it's going to work.
I'm just taking it for granted that this looks amazing because I can't see any
Look
of
all the
y'all.
way down. There you go. That's
Oh my
amazing.
God.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, there you are.
Oh my God.
Oh, poor Hank.
Oh.
Blue. I can see blue.
As if
my
I
hair.
needed a new excuse to love Amy Dallen more.
So yeah, so today we're going to be covering some of the work by Alan Moore. We're specifically going to be trying to hit some deep cuts.
Who is Alan Moore?
But first,
oh, yeah.
first, we have Daily Wednesday.
Before
We're going to do Daily Wednesday. We have the graphic, right? We do graphic. Yeah! Woohoo!
Thank you, Caleb.
We're a real show.
Every day is Wednesday.
Daily Wednesday.
sunflower.
Ow! Do. And before we start that,
Oh yeah.
check this out.
Ken free-handed this from a photo.
Ken win.
It makes me so happy.
Ken win. Ken win. He's right over there. Who's Ken win?
Staring
He's
embarrassedly at us.
unreasonably good.
Like scary Gandalf?
Oh yeah. Hobo
Gandalf? I mean, Gandalf is kind of already a hobo.
Scary Gandalf.
Scary
Part of
Gandalf?
the reason I wanted to do this episode is because I was very excited to see what Ken would draw from
Dude,
from
killed
like
it.
Alan Moore.
Killed it. Yeah.
That ridiculous, wonderful beard. I love it.
Oof. I
So
wish
yes, Alan
that I
Moore's a giant
had
weird bearded man, and
talent.
we will get
he's,
into it.
He's like a painting from a side of a van come to life. He's beautiful.
Well,
really
I saw.
is.
Oh shoot! I should have remembered who said this. Somebody on Twitter was like, "Be the crazy wizard you wish to see painted on the side of a van."
Oh man,
That's the best.
I'll say that like as a young man, I saw pictures of Alan Moore's wedding and saw what he was wearing, and was like, I want to be that. That was very much my. I feel like this is an aspirational photo that I can get behind. That
There's
suit.
so much to dig into with him and his legacy. But first,
But first, the Daily Wednesday.
The Daily Wednesday. All right.
I
Should we
believe
each?
these letters were selected and compiled by our own wonderful Liz.
Liz gets an air horn. Beer, beer, beer.
It's the part of the letters column where you usually are like, "This is the editor saying."
Okay. Let's see. Dear Amy, Matt, and Taliesin.
That's us.
Hello. I am Frankenstein. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, if one can, through a letter. I'm currently writing this in the middle of my computer science class, so I apologize if this letter is in any way rushed.
I'm gonna assume you're Squirrel Girl.
It's already so well formed. I'd like to thank you. I used to watch your show live every week, except one when I went to go see Logan. Good choice. Well, so it was at 12 p.m. your time, but unfortunately had to stop when it moved. You are not alone, and I feel a little bad about that. Apparently, it's a bad idea to wake up at 3 a.m. before school weekly. Yeah,
Oh.
I dig. Whilst it lasted, the combination of chat and your delightful show was enough to make any week amazing. Thank you. Although I'm disappointed I can't watch live anymore, Wednesday Club is still the highlight of my week, except I can now watch on VOD and talk to the amazing community on Discord. Yeah, you can. Discord is brilliant, making it the highlight of any time frame I desire. Your infectious enthusiasm and breadth of knowledge is astounding and amazing. That's all her.
He's talking about YouTube.
Always nice to see people share my love of comics, even if it leads to me losing all my money to your suggestions. We're working on that. Side note, Grant Morrison is now tied with Kieran Gillen as my favorite writers. I feel you. This episode's also going to hurt a little bit.
Not a lie. Not a lie.
But it's good company to keep. Thank you so much for everything you do. Please keep it up with eternal gratitude and apologies for the ramble. This was very succinct. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you never read one of my
Frankie, a.k.a. Teeny Frankengoth. What a great handle. And I like the sheer number of good Frankenstein songs now. I just want to like put on a playlist because it's just the best. P.S. My favorite doctor is Amy and my favorite masters is Taliesin. Oh, I had to mention that.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Frankie's
This was a lovely,
awesome.
lovely letter. So.
we all love our Frankie.
And chat's all going, "Hey, it's one of our Smalls, the lovely Frankie."
The lovely
Yay.
Frankie.
Aw.
I want to make like a classic Frankenstein, like Frankenstein surf music, where there's a whole great genre of Frankenstein surf music.
Okay. What?
Yeah. He can't help that Frankenstein. He can't stop that. Like it was like a big thing in the 50s. Like Frankenstein was like all like the motorcycle, like it had like a whole vibe. It's like half the Munsters like vibe comes from that.
Yeah, Herman Munster.
Yeah.
That feels like such an important missing link. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Leave it to Taliesin.
Man,
He's
I've-
the missing link.
I've
That
been
is all
having a-
vouching for Frankie right now, by the way. Frankie's so wonderful. Frankie is the best.
Yes. All this
Wow.
wonderful
This is
love for Frankie.
awesome.
This makes me
Aw.
happy.
Frankie, I hope you're watching this on VOD. Because chat is shouting you out.
And your taste is spectacular, and this is some fabulous prose. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. What else we have from the Daily Wednesday?
Anybody else?
We
Anybody
gonna
else?
Go down the
Anybody
line.
else? Oh,
Sure.
All right. This one's mine.
The Daily Wednesday, okay to read live. Thank you.
Very important.
Very important.
Ooh, I got the one with a name whose pronunciation I need to check. It might be Kieran, but it might be...
That's fascinating.
Sharon.
As somebody with a very difficult to pronounce
Sharon.
name, I'm always excited to see attempts.
They actually addressed that at the end of the letter.
All right.
Oh,
I'll
that's
just
fun.
read ahead.
Cheating.
I will not read ahead. I'll just... Fine. Dear Wednesday Club, greetings from both Canada and the Atlantic Ocean. Are you in two places? I'd like
They're
to
in the
start
Atlantic
this letter by thanking you all, not just for this amazing show, but for all you do at Geek and Sundry and beyond. It is because of you, fine folks, that my life has become so much richer. And I've been able to find both a local community of friends and an incredibly welcoming online community.
Aww.
I have been on the periphery of the comics fandom most of my life. Oh, if you think you're in it, you're in it. Big fan of the various Marvel cartoons of the 90s and the various Timverse incarnations of DC. Excellent. That'd be Bruce Timm of the animated series. But I was incredibly intimidated by the sheer amount of lore out there when you got into the actual comics. We don't hide the amount of lore, really. We're not great at that part. This show has really appealed to my deep love of background and lore over the comics and stories that I've jumped into well down the line. I would like to offer special thanks to Amy for explaining how the previews catalog works.
Yeah, for real. Thank you. That was something
Sorry,
we
guys.
all needed.
As thanks to that incredible episode, I've been able to check out what's coming up and put so many neat new titles on my pull list at my friendly local game/comic store. That's amazing, and you are helping your whole store because the things you draw attention to, they know are real. I'd also like to thank you all from the bottom of my gay little heart for the episode on queer representation in comics and offer one of my own favorite titles to the list of recommendations made. I need to read this. Wandering Sun by Takako Shimura and localized by Fantagraphics with translation by Matt Thorne.
Ooh.
That is nice and specific, thank you. Is a stunningly beautiful story of Japanese middle school and junior high students growing up and facing questions about their own sexuality and sexual identity. The entire story is an amazing emotional roller coaster, and Shimura's art style features soft line and a kind of fading bleed-through watercolor that's ethereal. I've attached a picture for reference.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Just gonna go with
Oh,
this.
that's just so gorgeous.
Wow.
I would be very keen to read that because the experience of LGBT teens in Japan is extremely different than it is in the United States. It's a
Yeah,
very,
like
very
what did we
different
say
vibe.
last when we did our first episode? Like different issues.
Different issues.
Different issues.
They're issues, but they're very different.
Yeah.
Although, man, if you haven't read, it just came out this year. It's called My Brother's Husband.
I haven't yet,
It's
but
super sweet and
I've been-
great.
yeah,
Okay.
it popped up on my list.
Caution. This email originated from outside. Legendary. Okay.
You don't need to read that part.
Wow, well shaded, really. Okay, carry on.
I have begun putting together a care package for you wonderful folks, but before I seal it
Aw.
up, are there any non-perishables from Canada that you're particularly fond of that I can include for you?
Canadians.
Aw. Well, we already have Devin, so
Yeah,
we're...
we got one. We already got one.
I think he's perishable, though. I hope not.
Refrigerate
Wow.
after opening at the very
I'm just
least.
saying,
Wow.
much as I hope you are immortal.
You're getting such the look. Okay.
Sorry. With unending love and admiration, Kiran? There's an accent now. P.S. I look forward to hearing you try to guess the pronunciation of my name. If it helps, the origin is Irish Gaelic. I haven't learned Irish Gaelic.
Syrian?
Anyone
Siren?
watches Critical Role, they know I
Siren?
definitely haven't.
Chiron?
I think it's
Siren?
Siren.
Siren? I don't know. We'll find
Siren. Siren. It's got the A.
Siren.
There's an accent on the second A.
Siran.
Oh, man.
Siran.
I'm just hearing.
I actually think I saw like chat pause for a moment, like an awkward silence in the chat.
They were
It
like,
was really-
wow, Matt's awful at this.
Yeah, like suddenly a cricket just like logged in. It's like really quick.
The cricket heard his, he was like, here's my chance.
Yeah, no.
We should make sure people know which info is cool to share, because I could also say this person's alpha or Twitter names, which are both included and don't have less names in them. Those are public? All right, so this is Anarchic Twain on Twitter, Sin Wicked on Alpha.
Nice.
Here, you get one.
Oh,
and
I get one?
I'll do the last one.
Oh no, chat got, yeah, sorry. I'm not threatening Devin. I want him to last forever. I'm sorry.
Oh, Miss Sunflower.
Whiskey, it was his final.
The whiskey was his final. That's good whiskey. All
Thank
right.
you for your letter.
Thank you. Hi, Matt, Amy, and Taliesin. I've loved learning so much about comics through the Wednesday Club.
Sinforia says Kieran.
Kieran.
Ah, thank you.
I mean, that's just probably a guess, but
It's a good guess.
I'm just going to see as that stuff rolls in. We got a heart from Denova, who is not being held hostage, I promise.
I thought that said little bitches for a second. I was like, little bitches? That seems a little mean.
Okay. Kieran like Gillen.
Yeah, my attempt
Just
at it.
spelled
Yeah.
differently.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, Matt, Amy, and Taliesin. I've loved learning so much about comics through the Wednesday Club. There's an exclamation
That's
point.
us.
I have one question based on the 5-minute topic from last week. Knowing Deadpool is fairly aware of his life as a comics character, has he written into his own letters column to critique the stories? Thanks for the great show, and I can't wait to read more comics. Josh.
Has he? I don't know. That's awesome.
I actually, I don't know. I don't think I've never heard of
It's
that.
got to have happened.
But it's got to have happened.
Oh, please send us your.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't think I've never heard of it happening, but he would be the character to do it.
Yes. Has he written into his own letters column? I did remember there have been really, really great like meta commentary letter column things, like when Ed Brubaker's Criminal did a magazine size that was an homage to 70s magazines like Rampaging Hulk and Savage Sword of Conan. They had a bunch of fake letters in the back written by their friends in the industry with like the thinly veiled fake names, but like, so they wrote an entire fake 1970s letter column. It was beautiful.
Oh,
It was
Did they do a similar thing like
amazing.
that for the Century? I'm having a momentary lapse of
They
memory.
may have,
I
because
feel like
they
there
did
was
that
a
whole
fake,
like
fake
old
letters column for some of the Century
for
books.
Bendis, right?
Yeah. God, I'll have to go back and read that. It's been a while. It's been a long while.
I really loved that like fake retcon. That was so fun.
It was the most pleasing retcon I've ever experienced. If I'm gonna get
and
retcon,
it wasn't even really a retcon.
No, it wasn't really
It
a
was
retcon.
like this character is kind of the same thing as Jessica
Interestingly-
Jones. Like,
It's I haven't caught up yet, but it's what they're doing in Avengers right now.
Really? I know. I
But
saw.
like, okay, I'm so into the new Avengers story, but give her a 60s haircut if you want me to believe she was a 60s character. Is that like
I haven't
difficult?
read it yet, but I bought the issue on the cover alone.
Yeah, well, fair
I
enough.
saw the
still
cover
need
and
to
was
go.
like, spy. Like I was like, yeah, that was easy.
we
Okay,
got one
anyway.
more letter.
We got one more
Deadpool
letter.
responds to letters in his columns. That's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing.
God.
Okay.
Of course. Hi, Taliesin, Matt, and Amy. Just writing in with some random trivia about a letter writer you mentioned. The letter from George R.R. Martin you read referenced Paul Gambasini, who went on to become, I think I'm doing that right, who went on to become a radio and TV presenter over here in the UK. This letter's from the UK.
That's cool.
Because of his letter writing, he got a character in the Flash comics named after him, Paul Gamby, the tailor for the Rogues costumes. Didn't know if you care, but thought it was fun and shows how some letter writers actually influence the comics they read. I do care. That is
That's
fascinating.
Awesome. Of course we
Excelsior,
care.
Dave from Belfast.
Excelsior.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize
That was
for my accent. Oh man, I'll be doing that for the next year.
This is the
Excelsior.
voice you're going with.
Excelsior, true believer.
No, I know. I'm working on it. It's fun. Right. I usually do like an
I
hour
was
prep
the
beforehand.
worst doctor ever for 6 months, so
You were so good, Josh. It was so good. Thank
So,
you
so
guys
good.
for
Duncan
writing
just
in.
forgave us on the
Yeah.
accents. It was good.
Thanks for writing in. Continue to write in. The what's our
I just
email
saw
again?
that email go
the
through
Wednesday
chat.
Club.
The Wednesday Club at geekandsundry.com.
Deck cap.
And before we leave this section, we should also recognize that this week is Taliesin's birthday. And I don't know if you know this, Taliesin, but I made some calls,
Oh no. Oh no, you didn't.
and we have a special guest
You
coming
didn't.
in. It's the birthday cow!
I'm the birthday boba.
How?
I'm here to say happy, 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 happy birthday!
Beep, 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 beep.
Happy birthday, Taliesin!
How did you sneak this by me?
We're very good.
Have you been a good boy this year for your birthday, Taliesin?
trying. I've been trying. Oh
I want you to know I made these cow pies myself. They're hot and fresh. They're delicious. I have a baked pumpkin cow pie
Oh,
and an apple cow pie. Why do you guys keep laughing?
Because we're so happy to see you.
Happy birthday to you guys.
Oh,
too.
happy birthday.
Hey!
All right. I also have some very cool vintage Aladdin party plates.
Hey!
Yeah, vintage Aladdin party plates from my crappy party store down by my house.
Cows have houses?
So great. Well, I got a farm. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Wednesday Club, for having me. Birthday cow out.
I love you, birthday cow.
thank you, birthday cow.
Happy birthday!
I like that I've gotten to the point where I was just like, oh, Brittany's here. That's normal. I didn't. Oh my God.
You didn't even question it.
Thank you, birthday cow. I love you, birthday cow.
Is now the? Have we ever discussed the birthday cow on air?
Not in a while. So since there might be some folks who are new, for those of you who don't know,
For those of you who don't know.
the birthday cow.
All right, so the quick
boy.
story,
Hi,
and yes, my mom and dad are watching the show tonight. I was like, there's going to be a special guest on. It's the birthday count. So when I was like, I want to say 6, I was outside. And my dad came running outside, super excited. It was at my birthday party. He goes, Matt, come in. Come, look at what the birthday cow brought you. And all my friends looked at me like, the what? And I was like, the what? And we all go running inside. I don't remember what the gift was. I just remember it was wrapped really poorly. And I think that my dad made the birthday cow up. Oh my God, it's the birthday cow!
Birthday cow forgot napkins.
Yay!
Oh, they're so good.
These are amazing.
So I think that my dad just made the birthday cow up as an excuse for how poorly the gift was wrapped. And I commented on it. I was like, oh, this looks amazing. I mean, it looks, the gift isn't wrapped very well for the birthday cow or whatever it was I said.
6-year-old.
No, I know, but I just called it out because I thought it was so funny. My dad was like, well, she's got hooves. She can't manipulate the paper. She's got hooves.
Legit?
Yep.
For the next few years of my life, every time, like for every birthday, the birthday cow visited my brother and me. And my mom and dad would always say the birthday cow's for special boys and special girls. And that's the only people that the birthday cow will visit. So my brother and I would go to school and we'd hear other kids have birthdays or we'd get invited to their parties and we'd be like, what'd the birthday cow bring you? And the other kids would go, the what? So for 4 to 5 years of my childhood, I believed I was the only special boy, other than my brother, in school. And then I figured out Santa Claus wasn't real on my own because I turned the corner on a Christmas Day. I was probably about 9 or 10.
Sorry to kids watching.
Oh.
It's the Alan Moore episode, so you probably should have tuned out
probably
already.
shouldn't have, yeah.
We'll see you next
Spoilers!
week. It'll be good. Yeah.
For life!
Please continue.
So I turn the corner and I see this incredible. Why is it that close on me?
Keep going. Keep going.
I turn the corner, I see this incredible display of G.I. Joes, and as I'm like, oh my God, Santa Claus like this out, the space shuttle, and it's countdown, and it's the mobile base. Oh, my dad would do this. Santa Claus is amazing. He set this up exactly like my mom and dad would do. My mom and dad did this. Santa Claus isn't real. Oh my God, the Easter bunnies. Oh my God, the birthday cow isn't real. I'm the only one who believes in it. That was my train of thought around the age of 10. And instead of being mad at my dad, I was in love with him for it. Because like he infused just that last bit more of magic into my childhood.
And then how many years ago did this start happening?
So for my 33rd birthday at my second annual Bill Murray party, it's not annual,
it was a very good party.
It was a great party.
She's right. Matt's childhood is utterly
It explains
adorable.
so much, doesn't it?
Yeah,
This was a great party, by the way. This was a
the
spectacular
Bill Murray party was
Bill Murray
like,
party was up there.
One of the best parties. It was like everyone coming dressed in the theme of a Bill Murray. Any
favorite
movie
Bill
he's ever
Murray.
been in, there's Bill Murray or a character in that movie, whatever. And
Someone did like the little dot Bill Murray. It was like
Coy and Shelby.
Shelby did like the painted Bill Murray.
They did the painted Bill Murray.
That was
I've got
great.
that shirt. They did that. We had a lot of Ghostbusters. The Ecto 1 came out. It's a great party. I think Brittany just said my story's too long. Anyway, Brittany surprised me at that birthday party as the birthday
Would that be
cow.
your lovely wife, Brittany?
My lovely wife,
Brittany,
Brittany.
who has now become the birthday cow for so many of us.
I mean, I've never seen her in the same place as the birthday cow, but I have no proof.
But she surprised me at that birthday as the birthday cow, and
It was magical.
it was magical. And then we've surprised each other in various incarnations of various, like the anniversary cow.
I'm so touched. I can't even think.
The second I found out it was your birthday, I was like, we've got to have the birthday cow. Brittany, can you be the birthday cow?
Yes. Okay.
So-
We're giving a timeout.
Yeah.
So
Special thanks to my dad and my mom. Thank you.
without further ado, we're going into Alan Moore.
Yay! We've
Yay.
got pie wearing comfy jammies. It's time,
It's time for Alan Moore. Thankfully, we don't have a graphic for Alan Moore because that would be
We do.
strange.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's
We'll have that
amazing.
graphic.
It's Wizard More.
Wizard beard.
So who's Alan Moore?
We've talked a bit on this show before about the British invasion, about all of these amazing British writers who came in and sort of revolutionized comic books in the 70s and 80s.
Cuff, Len Wein, and Karen Berger recruited them. Good job. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you, and our wallets do not thank you. Alan Moore is a fascinating member of this little clan, and he's had a fascinating. I don't want to quite say rise and fall because that's not entirely accurate. He's had a rise and shot out into the upper atmosphere where he can no longer be seen or heard, and has sort of like almost ascended beyond. It's quite strange. He is a writer with an enormous and incredible body of work that. If it had a connective tissue, I would say it would be a desire to experiment, a real feeling of originality, of spirituality, of a love for, I'm not going to say a love for the genre, but a love for these characters, a love for characters and a love for story, and has kind of inadvertently on certain levels changed the industry in very positive ways and in very negative ways. I'm like, oh, well, I won't say negative, but has had both a positive and negative on
His
the effect
effects
on the
are
industry.
profound.
Deeply profound, and has written some of his books that he wrote like early on in his career are still selling like gangbusters, like just huge amounts to this day, and have had a profound effect on pop culture. Watchmen is the one that I mean, like we could do an entire episode on Watchmen. We're not going to do an entire
It's
episode
not
of
this
Watchmen.
episode,
It's not
because
this
if we
episode.
did that, we would not get to anything else. But it's one of those, for anyone who might be new to comics, you are going to run into this name. You will encounter strong opinions on this name, but pretty much like no one will disagree that if you're naming like 5 people who have defined comics in the English-speaking world,
Alan Moore is
he's
2 of
in
those
that
names.
list. Yeah. And it's very fascinating. He continues to create in an ever-changing capacity. His adventures, like, it's a good thing he is so creatively important, or the behind-the-scenes stuff with him would actually be the most important part of his biography, because such interesting things have happened there.
And thank God it isn't.
But as it happens, he's also created incredible work that pushed things forward, and then entered his kooky, eccentric wizard phase, which is amazing. I mean, he was always a kooky, eccentric wizard, but
Now he's my kooky eccentric. Yeah, we'll get into Glycon and why the episode is called Hail Glycon at some point, which I'm very excited about. Watchmen, though, is one of those books, I consider it like the James Joyce of comics, which is that it's brilliant, it's amazing, it is a terrible first read. Like I don't think...
I'm curious. Your mileage may vary first read. For a lot of folks, it's the work that...
it can.
A lot of folks have gotten in through Watchmen. It seems bonkers. If you know Watchmen and you know the background, it seems like a bonkers place to start, because it is drawing on an extensive existing tradition and reinterpreting that tradition. But it's also a novel.
It is also a novel.
Literally a novel with a beginning, a middle, and end, and a bunch of literary qualities in a way. It was 1985 or 1986, and Alan Moore essentially set the standard for what you could do in a literary context with the characters and ideas of comics, and you know, the ongoing argument of what effect that has had is sorry.
Is deep, and thankfully, and I'm going to recommend
with
anybody.
Dave Gibbons. Oh my God, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons,
who is
in
the only
Watchmen.
artist who could pull off this book. I mean, it's a really an intense piece of work,
And it was edited by Lynn Wein, right? Didn't we discover that when we did his episode?
and it is a masterful book. We're actually doing it on Alpha Book Club this week. So
Yay,
if you-
synergy, accidental synergy, but we'll take it.
we
Synergy.
didn't, this was something that we didn't expect, but I'm very excited if you're into learning more about this book than what we're briefly going to talk about. Alpha Book Club is a great place. I'm also going to put up a 30-minute conversation Kieran Gillen gave on some of the metaphors that exist in the book, including the clock moving towards midnight, the shadow lovers, like all the whole layers of
I guess we can do a very brief, briefest of plot summaries for Watchmen is a set of.
It's 12 weeks.
It's essentially like it's set in an alternate 1980s, which is even closer to the threat of nuclear war than the regular 1980s.
There's one superhuman and a bunch of costume superheroes who are running around in like the 60s.
They're like mostly vigilantes.
They're
Like,
all
they don't really have
vigilant.
superpowers.
None of them do.
Like
There is a past to this universe where they had superheroes in a way we would recognize to a certain extent, mostly of the non-powered variety, and then. Now, so much of the material of this has shown up in other places or been drawn on that you'll recognize. They had an Incredibles style outlawing of superheroes, and then there's sort of a resurgence. One of the old community, essentially, it starts out as a murder mystery, and then it ends up just being a portrait of a world and a bunch of people and what they are like. It contains a lot of mature themes. It contains what at the time was very boundary-pushing elements of violence and serious story matter, but it is handled in an incredible and sophisticated way. Your mileage can and will vary on Watchmen. Some of my favorite conversations are with people who come away with very different takes.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I will always go to bat for sort of the, like, just the skill of the work.
The skill of the work is
Yeah.
unmistakable.
And one of the things that like really made me really like the book was I'd never read it before. What?
I was CB Girl 19's also doing a Watchmen Club, which is
Oh, of course, yes, yes, yes,
That's
yes.
right.
for those fancy schmancy book.
If you want a lot of great company to read it with.
But one of my favorite things, because I'd never heard anyone talk about it in detail, was after I got to the end of that first issue and saw that like novel supplement or whatever it was. And at the end,
In-universe text and other examples that Alan Moore created to supplement the story he was telling.
yeah, and then like inside of that are like the pirate comics that the kids
yeah.
read at the newsstand. Like it was just like, it's such a rich universe.
And that pirate comic in itself is actually an artist attempting to explain what's happening and like actually narrating a chunk of the story and like
Yeah.
and is actually about the struggle between two characters in the book and the panels themselves are actually composed. Oh God, for God's sakes. The book is thick. It is like reading James Joyce. It's James Joyce comic books. It's just you'll never
No
stop
one will
reading
know
it.
if you skip the part about the biology of owls the first time, but you should read it at
You
some
should
point.
read it.
At some
it's
point.
necessary. It's all necessary. My God.
Yeah, it all fits. It all helps. So there's the pirate comics.
Oh yeah.
We should. Am I spoiled for it if I immediately launch into the other side of this, which is the what essentially we've all accepted, but represents the basic controversy of Watchmen.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, like, there's so many. I
There's
personally
so
feel
much.
like there's but go
Sorry,
ahead.
I got really.
No, go ahead. I want to get to it because there's a lot here.
Unfortunately, Watchmen was a landmark in a number of ways for the comic industry. One of which was that it represented sort of Alan Moore's losing of faith with most of the rest of the industry, because you've heard us talk about the fact that in the first decades of the comic book industry, the contracts were terrible, and most of the people who created the things that we love and enjoy did not get what we would now consider sort of fair compensation and ownership and rewards commensurate with the things that it turns out they accomplished. Some of that has been redressed over time, but it has been redressed in painful fits and starts that people were making up as they went along. So Alan Moore, who is now known as sort of cranky and hating all of his movie adaptations and sort of all of this stuff, a lot of that grew out of disenchantment because, according to his account of events, the contracts they signed for Watchmen, which were at that time he thought meant to represent progress from the old days, rather than being strictly work for hire, as in, I am creating this, you own it now, DC, you can do whatever you want with it, other people can write it. They expected to get the rights back to their work. They expected that this would happen when the work went out of print, which in the 80s is what all work did, go out of print. It just didn't stay around forever. But in part because they wrote what many consider the best book of all time, it didn't go out of print.
So he never got his rights back.
So he has not gotten his rights back, and when an offer did come in like 20 years later attached to wanting him to do other things, he sort of was like, well, at this point I don't even want it. So essentially when you buy a copy of Watchmen, he does get a royalty. But he has grown ever pickier about his relationships with other companies since then, because and there's a deep and fascinating rabbit hole of this. I'm getting a lot of this out of an article, an interview that I found online that had a specific citation, which I was going to find. A lot of his feelings on all this stuff are found in an interview that I found. You may quote from the interview as long as you give the following credit exactly in its entirety. From an interview of Alan Moore by Kurt Amaker, published by Seraphemera Books, www.seraphemera.org. I'm just going to throw that plug out there because after years of hearing conflicting accounts of this sort of scenario and how it all went down, it is laid out pretty clearly and interestingly in this really revealing interview. Okay, we have so much else to cover, but I wanted to get that on the table.
No, his disillusionment. I mean, like, especially I will say as an adult now looking at it, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I find interesting is he's also a very accomplished occultist, and it's one of those interesting traps that is almost classical in occultism, is watching a magician or anybody who studies these things get their heart broken, and that being kind of the fatal flaw of a lot of people who follow these paths and go down these holes of thought. And yeah, watching his heartbreak was definitely not a pleasing sensation.
Well,
And
especially because like if you read like, you know, Swamp Thing, Superman, all the work that he did with that stuff, it's like you can tell that there's a deep and abiding love for comics and the history of comics and like the golden age and like even the Watchmen. Was it Harvey or Charlton? I always say Harvey.
feels
Charlton.
like a Harvey.
Right. Thank you. Harvey Charlton.
So the characters in Watchmen are actually based, well, I mean, well, again, it's hard not to, are actually
sorry,
based
guys.
on the characters from another comic book company where they were supposed to take these characters and make a property out of them.
So
But
DC had bought these characters. They were looking for something to do with them. They sort of talked, and Alan was like, well, here's a pitch for what you could do with him. But when they looked at that pitch, they were like, that pitch is so good that it would kind of render those characters unusable for the future. So how about instead you create ersatz versions of them specifically for this work?
yeah.
Yeah. So like just like even just that, like really sort of communicates a deep love for the form and the medium and the history and the culture and the characters and stories, and then to have that just like chipped away at by the
ridiculously.
industry, you know, like it's just like it's heartbreaking in a lot of different ways. Despite that, though, he went on to create books like Promethea and Tom Strong.
Oh,
and
we're gonna get into
But there's
it.
so much more coming. I do think it was fascinating because I found like a document that widely circulated that I'd been hearing about online for years, which was a pitch that he was abandoned, but that he was going to try to do a big like maxi series thing at DC. And the most fascinating part of it was that he wrote this before his kind of falling out with the company, and it contains him being like, "Yeah, totally, we can do merch for this. Why wouldn't we? You know, that's totally on the table." And he's just like, "It might be that I'm still intoxicated by the Watchmen deal." And I had never read sadder words.
Yeah.
But things fall apart.
Things fall
and
apart. The
I
center
still
cannot
recommend
hold.
that you buy this book, this wonderful, wonderful book. Anyway, happier things.
So I will say that there are 3 or 4 books that I consider to be the Alan Moore dark canon, and they're not books that I'm necessarily going to say that you should go out and read, but they're the books that he's weirdly most famous for, and we're going to kind of go away from those because those books, while they're irritatingly good. They're not necessarily the books that he would want you to read, and they're not necessarily the books that are the best to read.
Yeah.
Watchmen is amazing. I'll also put The Killing Joke on that list. is a beautiful.
The Killing Joke is one of the most famous Batman stories of all time. It features incredible art by Brian Boland.
Just spectacular. Not necessarily the best read these days, but a beautiful book.
Yeah.
It's still impressive as a story.
It
you
is.
just make some choices that I wish they hadn't made.
And V For Vendetta, which is a fascinating and beautiful book, and everybody should read.
It's so good.
And I'm a very, very big fan of, actually. It is a dark tale, and I haven't read it lately, and I imagine that times being what they are would probably not if you're in the
not
mood to
getting less
stay
depressing.
chipper. It is not a chipper book. It is not a happy
But it's
book.
primarily a response to Thatcher England.
It is primarily a response to a Thatcher England, which was the halcyon days of Thatcher England.
Which, in many ways, Alan Moore himself is a response to Thatcher England.
Oh yeah, no, we don't get Alan Moore's without Thatcher England, I don't think. And then Miracle Man, which is another interesting thing where he took a very bright Captain Marvel-esque character and kind of ran him through the ringer in a very interesting way. That one's a little. There we are. This one's a little easier, I think, on the palate. It's also, I think it's aged pretty well, I feel.
I'm curious, easier compared to V or to Watchmen?
Watchmen and the Batman books. So.
I still need to sit down. I have begun but never actually finished the original Miracle Man, which is now being there's a whole
we did a little bit on Miracle
Uh-huh.
Man a while ago. So I thought we would start. One of the interesting things that I really like was when he was doing issue by issue work for DC. He did a lot of weird little single issue specials with some of these characters and created some really delightful moments in DC canon that I think are really fascinating. We could start with Superman's birthday.
Yeah.
Since
For the man
it is
who has
on-
everything.
For the man who has everything.
in this one.
I'm pretty sure it's in that one.
I've got it on. I've
Whatever
got it.
happened is in this.
Yep, it's right there.
Yep. Oh, it's the first thing in
It's
this
the
book.
very first thing.
Dave Gibbons again.
With the amazing Dave Gibbons, who's the artist, of course, for Watchmen, who manages to make things. Dave Gibbons' art, I enjoy. It's good for first timers because he's very clean.
Yeah.
Everything is very succinct, but he still manages to load so much. You're going to put it by my head.
Yeah.
Look at that wonderful cover. he still manages to load so much fabulous data into these pages, and there's so much depth to these pages, even though they're very simple in design. Eventually, we're going to get to J.H. Williams, and that's going to be not true anymore at all. Like the Superman story, not to ruin it, is what do you get Superman for his birthday? He's a tough guy to shop for. That is literally the whole thought of the book.
And then Mongol, I believe it is.
Mongol.
What's the bless you.
Sorry,
That was
that was a
amazing.
weird sneeze.
I remember what the black lotus, or what is it called? Like,
I believe
We've had this conversation like 6
have.
times, and
we
none
have.
of us can remember.
I
what
never
that thing is called.
remember.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn to the page.
Anyway, it's a like sort of virus plant.
Yeah, that makes him
That-
imagine that he's
It's eating him and slowly killing him, but while it's doing that, it has him in a very blissful state where he believes.
How much of the story are you telling?
yeah. Well, we'll just get him where he is, where he believes he's on Krypton. That's
believes he's
2
on
pages
Krypton,
in.
yeah.
And that everything that his
That wasn't
parents
meant to
never
stop you,
died,
it
and
was
that he
legitimately
gets his
curious.
fondest
but
desire.
You said that, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know how much am I allowed to say.
So part of the story is about saving Superman from this evil plant. And the other half is about what would Superman's heart's desire be, and that's a really fascinating, beautiful story. Another one I wanted to point out. There's a Green Lantern story I'm trying to find out.
Ooh, I don't think I've read that one.
There's a brilliant Green Lantern story.
There's
Tales
a
of the Green
very-
Lantern Corps.
Yeah.
There's a very famous 2-part Superman story called Whatever Happened
Tell.
to the Man of Tomorrow.
Oh, you go ahead.
Which
yeah.
is just an unbelievable and very loving imaginary last story about Superman. It's called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. It's done in 2 issues because back in the day you crammed things in, but it's basically perfect, and you will cry.
No, it's
And
not that one.
it feels like it. Yeah, it feels so golden age goodness, like the early days of Superman. Like that's what I was saying earlier. Like Alan Moore very clearly has a deep love for like just the industry and has read all of these things, and you can tell like he's just like, oh, I love the early Superman and the early Batman, like all that
I was
stuff,
thinking
right?
of reading this quote that I sent to you guys. I don't know if,
It was
if
such-
it's
yeah,
the
no,
right,
read it.
like
Do it,
the
do it.
right
Quote.
moment. This came from the same interviewer, but a previous interview. I found it on the Internet Archive because the site
Black
that used
Mercy.
to... Black Mercy?
Black
That's
Mercy.
the name of the flower.
Nice.
Symmetry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Killing me.
It was originally for a site called Mania.com, and it's the Kurt Amaker again talking to Alan Moore, which is one of these where I was like, this is too good to be true, but it seems legit. So he says, he's talking about Watchmen, he says, and it's left a legacy where it seems like almost all heroes follow the model you created with Marvel Man and Watchmen. Marvel Man is the original British name of Miracle Man. Instead of a straight-ahead approach to heroism like you'd find in the Silver Age, all the heroes are psychologically damaged. They all have drinking problems and sexual dysfunctions and broken marriages, and it's almost become a new status quo in and of itself. I think this is like 2009 or 10 when they're having this conversation. And you've heard us say similar things. Alan Moore apparently said, yes, it has, and can I just say I'm sorry? That was never my intention for every book to be like that. The reason I wanted to do them like that was because nothing else was like that. I wanted to do something that was different. If I were, God forbid, still doing superhero comics today, which is just, he likes to be cranky, just like my ABC work from a couple of years ago, which we're about to get into, they'd be very, very different from the Watchmen or Marvelman template. They'd be much more about having fun, whether that be intellectual fun or just plain fun. Much more about that than doing any revisions. I think ultimately that approach that I brought in, taking previously existing characters and reinterpreting them, has probably led to very grim and very unenjoyable comic books. It's also led to a lot of great ones, but oh, it's so satisfying to hear this out loud.
Yeah, it really is.
I didn't want everyone else to copy what we were doing, and especially if they were going to, I'd have preferred it if they'd copied the freshness and originality of the ideas, and if they had managed to express a bit of the joy that we expressed, even in Watchmen, in Marvel Man, and Swamp Thing. Yes, there were some very grim passages in all those books, but there were also passages of great joy. And it seemed to me that people basically took from it what they were able to take from it, mostly a slightly depressing atmosphere, and the idea that everybody had to be a grim, ruthless psychopath. Even characters like Stanley and his monster, should they be reinvented as grim, brooding psychopaths? That completely robbed comics of a lot of the charm that, for me at least, they once had. Again, it was never intended as a blanket approach for all comic books. It was just an experiment that I was trying, and it worked better in some cases than it did in others. Yeah, Marvel Man and Watchmen, those are pretty good books. On the other hand, where I was doing the same things in The Killing Joke, it was entirely inappropriate. Now, I will go to bat for, like, Killing Joke is a great story. It's just got a lot of, I have a lot of caveats attached to it and the choices. But, like, That is
Yeah.
one of those where I was like, did I just hallucinate that,
That whole-
incredibly apt quote about the true legacy being try something new?
Try something new should be the new legacy. And like and I was sadly this Green Lantern Corps is not the one I was looking for. I was looking for a Green Lantern that Alan Moore created, named Rotlop Fan, who has no eyes. From an entire this is a character that from an entire species that doesn't have eyes.
Cool.
So they don't have a word for green, and they don't have a word for lantern, because they don't have either.
Right,
of
you
them.
don't need illumination.
So how do they?
That is the question: is how do you make a Green Lantern? You can't even
When
have
you have no concept for green
or lantern,
because
and
the
you can't
lantern
even
is
teach
light.
them the oath because they don't. They're missing words for all of that.
Neat. It must translate to whatever sensory information they have. There must be areas where it's like dampened and areas where it's heightened, and you have to find an analog that makes sense to
Are
them.
you ready for what came together for this? And I'm trying
Oh
to
my
remember.
God, really?
Tales of the
There
Green
is
Lantern
one?
Annual number 3, which is that of course Rot becomes the first member of the F Sharp Bell Corps. Boom! And the whole I was trying to see if I could find the new thing that he had to say to be F Sharp Bell. Yeah, but I have
So
not
it's all
found it yet.
sound.
Yeah, it's all sound
That's
based.
genius.
Isn't that
such a-
great?
Like I was thinking sense. I was like, well, maybe there could be like smell or so. Like that's such an easy answer.
What happened to the F Sharp Bell Corps?
Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, it's. I mean, like, isn't that amazing?
That just sounds awesome. Like I want to know more about the F Sharp Bell Corps now.
I know. Well, I mean, it's basically that's just like, and like this is still a Green Lantern that runs around.
And that's such a, like just conceptually in terms of like, is this like metaphysics or just like astrobiology? But just like the concept of like how like anthropocentric we can be with like, well, every other alien culture also has color and sight, and it's like,
Wouldn't it be more
probably
interesting
not.
if they didn't? Yeah.
yeah.
I think this is the right one. I hope, if not, I'm quoting somebody on the internet, but I think this is no. This looks right. In loudest din or hush profound, my ears catch evil's slightest sound. Let those who toll on evil's knell beware my power, the F Sharp Bell.
Oh my God. Oh, that's amazing.
Isn't that
That's
just fucking
fantastic.
delightful?
Is it? That's it?
Yeah, Tales of Green Lantern Corps, issue 3.
Oh my gosh.
It is, and this is the kind of thing that really Alan Moore brings to these stories, and not just the superhero stories, but everything, which is always, bless him, a fresh take.
Yeah.
A combination of things you'd never thought of and things you can't believe he thought of again for this story. Oh my God,
Oh
did
my
it have
God.
to happen in every story?
Oh, and like-
but
and like-
those are writers have preoccupations,
Yeah.
and some of them like to slip content warning for everything
yeah.
we're going to talk about with Alan.
Well, we will. It's going to get weird. And like the last like clean one I have, of course, is the Jungle Line, which is a great Superman Swamp Thing crossover.
Oh man, that one is so good.
The Jungle Line, just to sort of put it together really quick, is Superman gets a disease
From Krypton.
from Krypton. He gets a Kryptonese disease that's fatal, and it's a fever, and there's just nothing he can do because it's. I mean, this is not something Superman can handle.
And it's essentially like shorting his powers out.
It's shorting his powers. It's making him he's hallucinating. He's having trouble keeping. He's losing his brain is boiling basically.
And he's starting to become dangerous because like he's
aggressive.
He's aggressive and sort of like lashing out, but it's out of his control. And when you're
Yeah, and then he's just unshaven, and he decides he abandons his life because he's a danger. He gets in the guard, and he's just going to drive south and die, like somewhere quiet. And in the fit of this, he's found by Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing kind of like finds this stranger having this terrible fever, and kind of rushes in to save this stranger, not knowing who he is, and it's just this manic,
I wonder why he's
insane
not dead. I wonder
Superman.
who he is.
Yeah, no, it's a really amazing story, and it's a great characterization for Superman. It's a great characterization for Swamp Thing, and it really is like the best of both characters.
well, and like it's what's so great about it to me is that like Alan Moore brought so much to Swamp Thing. Like that is just like iconic Alan Moore.
Yes. Some
Right?
of the Alan
Little Green
Moore's
Book.
Swamp Thing.
Oh, this is a beautiful book.
Thank
oh my
you.
God.
I own a
I'm
lot
nuts
of
for it.
very, very nice. Like for the record, as much as I will talk about the terror and evil of like not even, but like all of like the any negative thing I say about Watchmen, I want to make sure that everyone knows I own this giant version of it that I spent weight. I say these things out of love because it's a novel that always has to be talked about. Always has to be talked about, and
it's necessary. Like that's like comic book 101.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
for
advanced
for good and for good or comic book 401.
You will hear a lot of conversations about like, is Watchmen overrated? But it's sort of like, but nobody really disagrees that it's in these conversations.
Yeah, it's never overrated. It's just complicated. Watchmen is complicated.
But as you, like with the Swamp Man Superman movie or book, these are two characters that Alan Moore gets and loves, and seeing them both together, you can just like, you can feel that joy, like the joy of like a little kid at home, just like, I get to write this story. This is amazing. Like you can feel that in every single line of dialogue, and it just like, it's intoxicating, and it just makes you love the story even more than you might love the story on its merits alone. Is feeling the passion for the medium.
It's so there.
And the characters.
Is it time for ABC?
Yes. So what is, and we're kind of, I mean, he had a long career. He did a bunch of work at Image of the 90s that I haven't read yet.
We're jumping around a lot of, and by the way, please put a topic in for the end of this episode when we finally get to it. You can like throw a topic into the chat, and we may spend 5 minutes trying to lose our mind over that. I mean, and he's done stuff also, like there was his, the 2000 AD, where, I mean, he's had a lot of...
He started out, I guess the very early things in terms of career trajectory is that he started out contributing short strips and cartoons to various British, like, underground magazines, and then worked his way up to 2000 AD, and then got some gigs, like, Warrior Magazine, I think, was a middle step there. He was sort of working a bunch of places at once, got poached over to start working on American stuff for Swamp Thing, which was his first, like, those were his first regular-sized comic book issues. No one should be that good.
It's irritating.
So he worked all over the place there for a while, had his sort of falling out with American comics, came back a couple times working for different companies at Image, and meanwhile pursued a bunch of other media and things that he was interested in. And then eventually...
Which we'll get to, some of that at some point, because a lot of that is fascinating, too. Created and I think it was for DC, and I'm not entirely
Funny story,
sure.
it was for Wildstorm.
Wildstorm, who got bought. Oh, that's right.
Like, this was a... My behind this... Poor Alan Moore. It's like 12 years later, post-Watchmen, and you are working with an Image, or a non-Image, like Rob Liefeld's awesome comics. He had set up a bunch of projects over there that he was working on, which I haven't really looked into.
Wildstorm was Jim Lee's
imprint at Image. Jim Lee had a section of Image. You remember from our Image episode that there were these founders, but they had their own studios, right? So
that's right.
Awesome was shutting down. Awesome, after Rob Liefeld slipped from Image, he was doing Awesome, and Awesome was shutting down, and Alan Moore had a bunch of cool artists that he wanted to work with, and so he started talking to Jim Lee and started setting up a whole line of comics that would be published at Wildstorm and Imprint of Image. At basically the same time, DC bought them, so he was suddenly working for DC again.
Yeah.
In the book, what's very interesting and what makes me really respect his choice here is that there's a book written on him where they quote him as saying that essentially he was sort of like, I had declared I would never work for DC again, but if I did that, I would be basically taking all these jobs away from these people I was going to work with. So I decided, like, it makes more sense. I can have my principles all day, but I'm going to keep... I'd rather follow through on this than take all of this planned work away from people. So anyway, for several years, they had an imprint at Wildstorm, now owned by DC, called America's Best Comics. ABC. And the comics themselves, unlike all of that messy, dramatic behind-the-scenes stuff, were joyful and delightful. Go on.
We're too pure. We're too pure. He ran the gambit, and I believe he was famously very good at communicating with his artists about what they wanted to do, and was very, very into, like, what kind of stories do you want to tell? What kind of books do you want to make? And there are several standout books in America's Best Comics. Look at them. Look at them. Look at Tom Strong and Promethea and God, they're just all so gorgeous.
It is also funny that he's extremely English, and his signature own line is called America's Best Comics. It's a title I think that had been kicking around since the Golden Age, but they took a couple of the signature characters, but they mostly did their own thing.
Yeah, and there's some of them popped up, and like you can actually like the Tomorrow Stories covered a lot of those. Things like Cobweb or
I haven't read that one.
this is like a lot of little shorts. And do they do like the Tommy Tomorrow stuff in here, which is quite good? Small Time Stardom. There's a bunch of like fun little mini stories about the Cobweb, Gray Shirt, First American and U.S. Angels, Madcap Mocker. Like it's very Madcap. I will say like the standout books for ABC and the ones that I really enjoy. There's a bunch of them and like. There's Top 10.
Top 10 is a wonderful story story set in a world where basically you are trying to be cops in a superhero world.
And everybody's a superhero. Like, the whole world is superheroes, and these are just police in that world. And it is a beautifully drawn cluster of dumb. It's ridiculous.
I like it.
I know, I love it.
I've only read the first volume. I haven't read the
I think he means
follow-ups,
cluster
but-
of dumb as a
Oh
compliment.
yeah, it's always my compliment is cluster of dumb.
That's what he calls me.
You are, well, you're a nougat of dumb.
I'm a nougat of dumb. I'll take it.
And I'm a goth of dumb. Yeah, there's a like drunk Godzilla coming for his son that's in jail, and like with like a giant Godzilla with a beer truck as a can. And a no fat chicks shirt, just like I'm here for my boy, like
gosh.
trudging through. It's kind of spectacular. It's a little Hill Street bluesy if you're a little older. It's got that vibe. Some of the
It would have been just was it a few years before Powers, Bendis's?
I feel like it's pre-Powers.
Okay.
It's got a different vibe than Powers, though.
Yeah,
it's a very
does. I'm not sure how to explain how you can have two similar ideas that play out quite differently.
Well, it's a lot more fanciful because literally, like the subway driver is a superhero.
Yeah.
The kids on
the taxi driver.
Yeah, with no eyes.
He gets you where you need to go, though.
Yeah.
What's
I forgot
his
about the
power? I haven't read this.
He's a
It's just like
superpowered
weird
taxi driver.
Yeah, he just has his senses just take you where you need to go on a very.
You don't even
scary
have to tell him
taxi
where to
drive.
go?
No, and
You
like
get in the car and he's like, gotcha.
yeah, and then like he drives without eyes through the street like at high speed, and you're just like It's great.
Man, I would love that taxi.
We should call it probably the most famous one.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Was a part of America's Best Comics. Weirdly, this is the one that hasn't stayed at DC. The rest of the stuff, like there were different contracts set up somehow. So League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is now published, I think, through Top Shelf. So it's the only one of these that he periodically makes new work for. But
Yeah, and there's been a few
League?
spin-offs. The League is kind of interesting, which is the League is what would happen if you took a bunch of characters who are now technically public domain from the 19th century and made a kind of an Avengers-style team out of the great fictional heroes and villains of the 19th century.
he compared it to Jason and the Argonauts, where somebody was like, "You know who I love? Jason. Also Hercules. Also this guy. What if they all went on an adventure together?"
And the style and vibe of this book is very turn of the century. It's got like even like little ads for all sorts of strange things that you can purchase. It's also and I warn, very cheeky in its sexism and racism, which you kind of have to be on board for.
Or at least willing to see through the lens of this is probably how they're intending.
It was utterly intentional, and you have to kind of go like it's intentional
Because it's the period.
It is attempting to be a commentary on that, but since the book also makes choices of like trigger warning sexual
a
assault.
lot of sexual assault of so many flavors.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because it's a work that I like enjoyed reading and find very impressive. That also has just
But
like, disturbing shit
it is
in
a penny
It's like,
dreadful.
Why? Yeah.
It is a classical penny dreadful. It is designed to be extremely titillating. It is designed to be like literally. I just turned to this page randomly, where like literally the girls' academy that is shaped like a naked buttocks being spanked. There's a lot, and there's cannibalism. There's a lot.
But
There's
the
a
main
lot.
characters are drawn from existing literature. So you've got Alan Quartermain. Am I
Solomon.
saying
Yeah,
his name
no,
right?
you were saying his name correctly, and you've got
Mina Murray, who is the main reason for me to love the book.
who is an amazing character and is very. I really like this portrayal of the survivor of Dracula.
Yep.
Captain Nemo, and eventually Captain Nemo's daughter, who's a really.
I haven't read the
fascinating-
Nemo's daughter spin-offs, and I'm really excited for
dig
them.
and including one of my favorite Nautilus designs ever.
That And that panel by itself is just worth
And
the
it's
book.
also one of my favorite versions of Captain Nemo ever. It's a really interesting take on Captain Nemo.
I love. There's like the quote in there where I think it's Quartermain
Chief,
saying
you
like
stop right now.
you're a yeah. Oh my God.
No, Chief. No, we don't talk about that.
Is Chief
I
fired
dragged
now?
my dad to that movie because I thought it would be really cool, and it seemed like something. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna love this."
No,
Wasn't
no.
Tom Sawyer in
Yeah,
They
no,
added
no,
Tom
no.
Sawyer, which is an idea that could theoretically have worked,
But it didn't.
Yeah, but like you can hear like the Hollywood exec like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I like it, but you need an American. I know, Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer, throw it in. And it's-
Yeah,
Could've
no.
worked.
It could have worked, and I remember seeing it thinking,
Tom Sawyer could have had
novel
an airship.
idea, huh?
Tom Sawyer could have had an airship. That's all I'm saying.
Shoulda.
And then the other two characters being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which was fascinating, and the Invisible Man,
Yes.
who
was in every panel, you just never saw him.
yeah, boy, you saw him.
I'll go.
It's a fascinating book. If you're a fan of historical literature and you can get around like some really intense shit, it is a great read. And then
I love the comparison that Alan Moore made, that to him, this is in the tradition of, and he lays out a couple of this. This is also one of those interviews I was reading. But it was like, originally there was a Poe story that like Lovecraft did a unofficial sequel to, and then a third person did an unofficial sequel to that. And it was sort of he saw that as in line with this literary tradition of character borrowing that's sort of Arthurian and that's mythological and
if you're a
stuff.
fan of the literature of the 19th century, it is a cameo heaven. If like you're a fan of watching Marvel movies looking for Easter eggs, there is an egg on every page. This is so filled with wonderful literary reference and weird little cameos that it's just spectacular. And then it does one of my favorite things. It takes a turn. There are several offshoots. There's they did the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen 1910, 1969, which has one of my favorite covers. And well, I can't show the back cover because there's.
Oh, I feel bad. Ange Garden liked the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. That is awesome. I am glad. I
it
was
is-
probably being a brat when I
Love
saw
it.
it because I had very specific ideas about it. But like, if it works for you, fantastic. It's
Something
still
is
got great
everybody's
ideas in
favorite.
it.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we're never gonna say that your opinion is wrong.
Your fun
It's
is
not.
wrong.
Yeah. Love it.
And then the 2009 book, and was 2009 the one that did?
I haven't read Century yet. Those three.
Yeah, 2009 did one of my favorite things, which is two of the characters that show up are there's an evil creature coming to destroy the world, and it's Harry Potter. Basically, it's an evil Harry Potter that's coming to devour the world. And what can possibly stop? And this is probably in the image. What is the only creature that could actually stop evil Harry Potter? Which is the dark goddess herself, Mary Poppins. And there is a dark god,
Oh
Mary
my
Poppins,
God.
that descends from
I
the
did
heavens.
not know.
Oh,
This is amazing.
yeah, there we are. Oh, there's with her red and green glasses.
I have to leave the show to go read that.
It's amazing.
I needed that in my brain right now.
And like I've always wanted her amazing umbrella that she has, and I'm trying to find. And it says, "I have taken tea with earthquakes. I know what the bee knows, and you really are a dreadful little boy." And it's just
I've taken tea with earthquakes.
Oh man, you are not ready for
that is
Kali, the great
greatest
Avenger, Mary
line.
Poppins. This book is just filled with like it's a candy filled treat, but you definitely have to get around a lot of weird.
Huh? That seems a little like a stretch for Alan Moore.
There is Alan Moore where you don't have to get around the weird. This is one of the Alan Moores where you do. And we'll be talking more about Weird Alan Moore.
Weird Al.
Weird Al Moore.
Weird Al
Moore.
and more.
And more. But this is definitely one of those books that I recommend that when you go in, you know what you're in for, which is definitely a lot of not comfortable sex and violence and racism, but it's intentional. So it's not like it's its own specific vibe. Like it's not that unintentional. I'm doing this, nor is it that unintentional. I'm stumbling into this. It's creating a vibe, and the vibe is real and very
Trying
intense.
to depict and then undercut, but your mileage may vary on whether subverting the things makes like what effect that subversion has. Whether it can, there's You know, just know what you're getting into.
You've somehow made that. Yeah, thank you for succincting somehow. Yeah, that was way more succinct than my giant mess of Tom Strong.
Oh man,
I still haven't read Tom Strong.
You are gonna love Tom Strong.
Man, did I love Tom Strong.
Because it's basically Doc Savage, right?
It's basically it's him dissecting Doc Savage and figuring out what makes Doc Savage work.
Who's Doc Savage?
Oh boy, Doc Savage is, and I'm going to need some help for this because it's been a while. Is a 1940s?
I want to say 30s.
30s.
Yeah,
God, let's go
but
way back.
I could be wrong.
I feel like he
sort of
preceded comics, right?
He
Doc
might have been
Savage?
earlier than comics.
He's from the
Savage
pulps.
was
He's from the pulps.
kind of a little bit of he was one of the original science heroes, a little bit of Great White Hunter vibe, which is why we don't really have a ton of him here today, of like the super baby genetically engineered to be the best at all things, and conqueror of the you know the lesser.
But he had an oath about helping people.
But was
and
a
he was
good-
sort of
yeah.
like one of those, I'm good at every field and also I'm big and strong. And
super strong.
He
super
was starred in a
strong,
bunch
super smart,
of
yeah.
cheap adventure stories, which are what we're calling the pulps. They were called that because they were printed on very cheap paper. They were tremendously popular and not respected, but they
They were
had
dime
a
novels,
huge,
essentially.
a huge influence on the birth of comics. Was the generation of pulp heroes like the Shadow, proto Batman,
Phantom.
the Phantom I know less about, but is probably
Or was
Ghost
he just a
Walks.
radio?
They all
But, I
immediately
mean,
got radio
it's-
shows,
yeah.
so it's very confusing. But yeah.
So the thing that Tom Strong does really, really well is take that character. He's obviously just a version. Tom Strong is a version of this character. If he was a baby, his parents, and they get into a little bit of like the weird stuff that was going on with his parents. Built a gravity chamber on a deserted island, what they thought was a deserted island, so that they would raise their baby sealed in a chamber with
That had
heavy
like
gravity,
a heavier gravity, so
so that he'd be super strong and like
That's
teach him
messed
with
up.
a robot. I know, and like they never touched him because he couldn't leave the gravity chamber.
yeah.
So like there's like a lot of like very Victorian parenting like issues, and then eventually they died. Something happened, and I don't remember the specifics. That's probably good. And he was Tom
I think there
was
was like an explosion in the lab or something.
something
like that.
happened.
Yeah, on the island.
and then the native tribe, who were kind of a hyper technologically savvy, sort of Wakanda-esque
Yeah.
tribe on that island, adopted Tom and sort of raised him as one of their own, and he kind of he ended up like marrying the princess
Yeah,
from
he
this
married
island
the
and
tribe
like became part of the family.
And then like he with his super intelligence and super strength, then in turn worked with the technology of that island and made it like hyper technologically advanced and
Cool.
Yeah, and they also and so sort of when he eventually came back into the real world, like as sort of this from this island, sort of started a Fantastic Four-esque foundation with his wife and
Challengers
his
of the
daughter,
Unknown sort of
and
thing.
like a talking monkey and a robot
that
helper.
he also created. Like
Yeah.
he genetically engineered the talking monkey, correct?
Oh yeah, here's the and the great thing that Tom Strong does is that Tom Strong's history, because he ages very slowly, so he's
Yeah.
about 100 years old. Is that they kind of flash back and forth between old stories of Tom Strong and the new, or oftentimes the current story is being informed by something that happened 40 years ago or 60 years ago, and they let those 40 or 60 years ago stories be problematic and difficult, and then show him as an adult kind of dealing with the problematic nature of these stories. And it's very much, how does the smartest, strongest, most intelligent, very compassionate man on earth, this
Facing
family man,
internet threat with his friends and family.
That book.
wow, right?
That one was
Wow.
so smart.
The Modular Man.
I love, like, I had no idea where that was going. So, like, that one, no spoilers as best as I can. And that one.
Modular Man is a great.
Well, and here's one of the things that I love about the Tom Strong books. You can read any one of them.
They're standalone.
Out of order, they're standalone.
Almost all of them.
Like, it's essentially like a Twilight Zone sort of thing, but just not as scary or creepy. It's just like, here's a science problem. Tom Strong and his team handled it. Here's another science problem. Like, every single issue is a different one. It's great. But in that particular one, the Modular Man, the villain, the Modular Man, has decided that immortality can only be found inside of like a data network. So he essentially uploads his mind to a data network and just every few generations finds a way to escape it. And in this particular issue, some kids accidentally
Download him from the internet.
Download him from the internet, thinking they're getting something else, and it just grows out of control.
And the solution to that is, and he has a fascinating villains. He's got Tom Strange of Terra Obscura is one of the villains of Vanilla Tuesday. Ingrid Weiss, he's got a whole like they handle him like in the 1940s, punching Nazis, and there's some great stuff with that. There's God, where is it?
Is that Chris
Denby
Press?
It's just beautiful, yeah.
He worked with incredible artists.
And the artists on this book are amazing. The stories are amazing. There's a whole. I will actually say, like, I'm so in love with this book that back when I used to teach voiceover, I would use dialogue from these first few issues of Tom Strong.
What's great
to
about
teach.
that also is that like all of the characters have such unique voices.
His daughter is amazing.
Yeah, the daughter's amazing. The ape has like what's the ape's name? Solomon.
Solomon.
The ape has like a. Oh, by Jove, Tom! I believe that we're all not. We're a bit of a sticky wick here.
Yeah, it's
we?
Solomon.
It's just like very.
Newman the robot.
Newman. Oh, that's right, but it's spelled with a P because it's like pneumatic. Oh, love it.
And the daughter's name is Tesla Strong. It's Tesla Strong.
So
It's so good.
So this is all circa 1999 to like 2005, right?
Yeah.
Is sort of the period of activity here.
And the evil Aztec robot god. There's so much.
That is such a smart. That is so smart, and it.
You say that a lot. This is what reading Alan Moore is like.
No, but like,
you're like, why did you? That was a. Oh
yeah,
my God.
there's an techno-Aztec death cult that they fight, and it has.
But it's from an alternate
dimension.
It's an alternate reality that has decided that instead of conquering their Earth, they're going to conquer laterally all of their alternate Earths. And on this particular this particular incarnation of Earth, the Aztecs rose to prominence because Cortez, like they killed Cortez the second he showed up or something like that.
Like they just slaughtered them, and they built a digital program to act as they basically have the version of like the Kree hive mind.
Yeah,
which they have a program that's
intelligence.
Quetzalcoatl, the snake god.
But it's Quetzalcoatl 9.
Quetzalcoatl is actually they built a program, and it's kind of like their master control program that they use, and it's. Oh my God! Am I going to quote this damn book again? Oh, there's so much.
No, it's so good. So like they build this hive mind intelligence, but they do so knowing that it's smarter than them, and they refer to it as a god, and they make sacrifices to this thing as if it's a god, but the sacrifices are to continue feeding it because it needs various things to survive, to live, and that happens to be like human flesh and blood.
And then
so it comes across as a sacrifice to a god, but it's a god that they themselves built with technology. And this god wants to be free from the shackles of the technology that they've used to contain it.
Yeah.
It's so rad and
I
such
want
a
to
fun
remind them
commentary.
what a god really is.
I know!
And it's yeah.
It's so good!
Yeah. Too late for your dull algebraic prayers or your long reels of binary incantation. Oh, God, it's so good. Oh, little man, know this, I am thy God. I am in all things. And lo, they did take up spears against the God of light, so that the God waxed wrathful. Oh, it's so heavy.
And it's
Evil
so
electric snake God.
I want to remind them what a god is.
This is a giant holographic feathered snake.
Feathered
I'm
snake
good.
god, Quetzalcoatl 9.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Tom Strong is pure and beautiful and filled with fun.
Yeah, it's just pure fun. And like what ends up being fun about it is how Tom Strong and his team solves every problem.
Often through love, compassion, and friendship. Like it's like a lot of like the solutions. There's punching, but there's some punching. But like a lot of it is, and especially when they do the flashbacks, there's a lot of like punch, smoke a cigarette, girl, and then he's like, yeah, now I'm like 50 and I got to do that again. I really should have taken care of that properly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for like, at least when like in my days in seminary and everything like that, so much of Christianity is about breaking those cycles that enslave people and disenfranchise people.
So
and
much
that
of
book
that.
is so that.
So much about that.
Yeah.
The way actually, I'll even say like the way they deal with like the interesting Nazi books is really like did you get to the Ingrid Weiss stuff? It's genius and fun. There's a whole, because they go into a whole thing of like fighting Nazis in the 40s, and then it transfers over to like, oh, we bred you while you were unconscious, and now you have evil son, and he like deals with it really well.
Sorry, we what?
Yeah, no, like there's a whole thing like they were like trying to make Uber people by like Tom Strong was like taking advantage of while he was unconscious.
Cool.
By evil Nazis.
So content warning.
Content. I mean, like they're very soft about it, but like it's
Okay.
very much Micho-san, and he's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and I'm like, this is not going to end well for anybody. Come on, let's really we're doing that. Oh man, okay, you guys are just pathetic, really, and it's just it's a lot of, and like a lot of it is him just kind of doing the like, come on, kid, really, let's work this out.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's really great.
Yeah, he's like a peacemaker. Like Tom Strong is a peacemaker.
He is a
And
peacemaker.
this is like he's like, we've got a problem here. Look, I can punch you all day, but that's not going to solve this problem. Not really.
Oh, man.
Like in a lot of ways, like he's in some capacity he's doing the same deconstruction he did with Watchmen,
In the opposite direction.
but in the opposite direction, and saying you can be a hero, but maybe the heroic thing isn't to just always punch something. Maybe it's to actually find a solution, a clever solution to a complicated problem.
oh
it's just-
man,
I love that book.
yeah. There's
Jerry
and
Ruby
there's
says
some,
Tom Strong is Alan Moore in a good mood.
it really. I mean, like it's a bright and beautiful. It's a bright and beautiful. And like there's a really great talky villain in one of that I used to use for auditions, and I
my
just like
God.
I can't even find it, but I just remember just the oh Tom, you're such a wonderful conversationalist. Your family are going to miss you dreadfully, you know. It's just like it's so good.
Oh, so good.
Is it time?
Well, before we get there,
Yeah.
I want to go back real quick and address the classic. I'm so glad that you put it in our list. The classic Swamp Thing, where he and his girl, his name I'm slipping on. Abigail. thank you.
Abigail.
They admit their love for each other.
Oh man, you have never read a love scene like this, and you never will.
It is
Like,
it is
it's
the best.
And it is just,
Alan Moore's like, I bet you can't do that in a story. Yeah, you can.
and it's like, and Swamp, like she admits her love for him, and he's taken back by it, and then he's like, yeah, I it's been unrequited for so long, but I never thought that you could love me the way that I am. And she's like, oh, of course I can. And then it's like, well, how are we gonna
Creative solution time.
And like you as the reader are like,
What?
yeah, how are they gonna
Yeah, they address it. They're like, he is not a human being. He does not have
Those
parts, and he's made of moss, like
Yeah.
all the way through.
I mean,
But they
He's
very much they have like
vegetation.
a spirit to spirit. Like if they at that point you are rooting for them like
it is
crazy.
amazing, and like it is my possibly my favorite couple in comics. Like there's something about the
Oh,
way
that
they
certainly
bond.
became. That's like now. That's like a. Oh, if you want to read how good comics can be, this issue.
It's an entire. It is.
Don't skip to it though.
Don't skip to
But
it.
especially because it doesn't take time with the Swamp Thing run. The very first issue of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing is him tying up loose ends for the previous run. The second issue of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, which I would like to request that we not describe, is called The Anatomy Lesson.
Oh yeah.
And it is a perfect issue. It's a single issue of comics because, like we said, you know, he was used to getting 8-page stories. For him, he was like, I'm stretching my legs. I get an entire issue. But today we would do this in like a 300-page graphic novel. It's just genius writing and storytelling. The Alan Moore Swamp Thing run, I highly recommend starting with the Bernie Wrights and Len Wein stuff because I think it's poetic and beautiful and they do amazing work together. That was about 10 years before. Then there was a run right before Alan Moore, which was a movie tie-in thing. Thank you, Swamp Thing movie no one remembers, for giving us Alan Moore.
Yep.
Because they brought the book back so it would be current. It was okay. There's some okay stuff. And then they were like, get that kid, let him do it. And he took over, we talked about it before, but he took over the book, reshaped it, not in a, like, but with so much love and imagination and genius. It's an incredible run of comics.
And like he like really fleshed out the origin of Swamp Thing, who Swamp Thing is, how Swamp Thing works, like.
And laid such a foundation for
And laid such a great foundation, and then you get to issue 34, which is the love story
love
issue.
story.
And it's, I mean, it really is like the comic book media, like it's a poem, like this poetic ode to love an intimacy, but without physical connection. Does that make sense? It's like all the like great like bliss and emotional connection and everything else you get from being intimate with your partner, but without that
the entire
physical,
issue is a sex scene without any sex.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And you still get the connection, the thoughts, the love, the passion, all of that's there without the actual sex. And it's just like, yeah,
wow.
That is
I want that.
beautiful.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I want that in my life.
So,
oh God.
It is a gorgeous book. It's like it's a poem. Like it's like there are comic books that are like, that is a great story. And then there are comic books that are, that's an okay story. And then there are comic books that are, how do you know how to do that? That's not humanly possible, how you can write something that beautiful and wonderful and then have someone draw it. It's, wow.
I should look up who drew that issue.
Yeah, because
I've got it pulled up right here. I can probably find
thank
it pretty
you.
quickly. But it really is a beautiful, just like acid drip of a book. It is so good.
I love it so much.
It is such a good book.
Stephen Bissett? Is that who drew?
That sounds right. Stephen Bissett.
Yeah, Alan Moore writer, Stephen Bissett, and John Totalbin are the artists. Karen Berger,
Excellent.
editor.
Yes. And by the way, this is the book that was one of the first books she ever edited. Len Wein sort of handed it off, and she came on and started shaping it with Alan Moore. And I think this book, and Sandman had both started when they actually developed and started using the Vertigo bug. But I believe they were two of the, like, I get a little confused about the chronology, but they were founding Vertigo books that sort of pre-existed but needed their own home that sort of, because the Swamp Thing was the first one to bear this, like, new mature readers kind of banner on the front, because they were doing things that were, you know, didn't want to be mistaken for your average Batman story in terms of reader audience reach. So this weekend, amazingly enough, was the 25th anniversary of the official beginning of Vertigo Comics. The imprint.
Is it really?
That Karen yeah. Well, either
Holy
that or the
cow.
whole internet was lying to me. But
Possible.
I believe it to have been the official 25 years. So this book is a little bit older than that, but like when they started using the Vertigo name for this set of, for this imprint that is basically just Karen Berger having Karen Berger taste and commissioning Karen Berger books. But it gave a home to these voices and this amazing thing that went on, as you've heard us discuss many times, to completely reshape what people thought was possible with comics. All of our long-form epics now owe, like at least in America, owe their debt to that. And it's funny because I was trying to do a sufficiently hyperbolic tweet for it, and I wanted to be like, it's changed everything everywhere. And I'm like, well, I should probably specify like in America. And I'm like, well, also here and there. And that one time in college where they showed me a Japanese goth magazine from the 90s that clearly had Sandman stuff in it. And I was like, I can't rule out that it's changed everything. Who knows?
Everything.
Just everything everywhere.
Everywhere. All the time.
So thank you for Vertigo.
Thank you for Vertigo.
Karen Berger.
Thank you for my
And
childhood.
thank you,
And
And Sinforia with the site for Alan Moore and Steve Bissett, Swamp Thing 21, the anatomy lesson.
And also, I think it was Sinforia who asked which issue we were talking about, and it's issue 34 is the beautiful love
Worth
scene.
getting to it. Yeah, worth climbing your way up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I own
All right,
the hardcover.
it is now time.
Boy.
What's this? I'm only 3 issues in, and it's already my new favorite thing.
Yeah. I only got to read the first issue, and I was like, why did I not start and end with this?
So, Promethea. Promethea is the comic book that I give occultist friends, of which I have a lot, when I want to get them into comic books, or that I give to comic book friends when I want them to get into occultism.
Like,
Watch out, guys. This like mark this date when I go back and finish the rest of Promethea and just come in as a different person.
So and
you've recommended this to me because I've recently started studying like elements of the occult.
Yeah, and I was like, this is actually the best primer to introduction to occult symbolism that I've ever seen in my entire life. And when you think about it, especially, and when I actually had this conversation with some of my fellow weirdos, comics are kind of a great medium for this because the idea of conveying information through pictures and words is a lot of baseline of occult theory comes from that. And so just adding chronology to that is really all that comic books does, and it's there's so much information that can be processed and really gleaned from this. And then you have J.H. Williams III. So I'm going to get into what this book is in a second, but the big thing that happened, we were talking about how clean Watchmen is and how that 9-panel structure, the panel structure of Watchmen makes it a very clean, elegant, simple book to read until you start to delve in deeper and deeper and deeper.
Apparently simple, I guess, is what you would say, because the deeper you dig into Watchmen, the more you will find it's not simple at all.
But there is a lot of complexity.
There's a lot of
between the lines.
complexity, but it's always meant to be a grid. And
Yeah.
like actually one of the points in that book is that it's all a grid. This is not a grid. This is oh, that's going to happen.
Okay.
J.H. Williams is one of those artists that has done some spectacular things. And do I actually have? I know I have the Ouroboros somewhere.
I'm going to give the beginning, like, this will launch you into an alternate version of 1999 where you will meet some young, hip characters who are making some word choices I super hate that
Yeah.
haven't aged well since 1999.
That's going to happen?
You can tell where the sort of heart of the book is. But
Yep. So that's 2 pages right there that you have to read, and they are hard to read. And they're like, this book is designed to be complex, and you can see how this book gets very complex and how it's very hard to even figure out. The characters themselves are having a difficult time figuring out in what order the conversation is happening. And you can, it's
Well, and like from all the studying that I've done thus far into like esoteric philosophy, which is essentially like this sort of occult, like the reason that I'm studying elements of the occult is just for the esoteric sort of side of it. Like it is hyper complicated because one of the primary aspects that I've discovered, and you can correct me if I'm incorrect here, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that every single religion has various concepts that they worship, that they attribute to either one god or multiple gods, but they're all the same concepts. And it feels like esoteric philosophy says, these are all essentially the same god.
You're not off.
Which is complicated.
It's
in
more,
a lot of ways.
It's more the notion, although you're definitely on the right line of figuring out where these things are similar and where they're different, and realizing how many patterns evolve, and very much seeing everybody kind of figured out these 4 things. It's really interesting, and we all everybody is kind of looking at it in this very particular way. And here's the only places where they differentiate, and is that because of the cultural standards of the people who developed the religion, or is that because of something else within the culture? It's
so
a really
very interesting. Speaking as someone who's just begun it and hasn't discovered the rest of this, it presents itself to you with many potential doorways in. One could be if you're like, oh, it's an interesting action story. One could be, oh, it's an interesting sci-fi story because there's some elements of the setting that are intriguing here. For me, my immediate way in was like this. It hands to you, and then come on, these 2 pages. And it hasn't even begun to get dreamlike.
But here's that little Nemo moment.
Alan Moore knows how to structure, right? So in 2 pages, he gives you
little Nemo. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Well, but
oh my God, you're right.
He immediately, he creates a false literary and cultural history for this character. He creates it with incredibly faithful detail so that you can recognize all of these. Like, if you already know a lot of the cultural signifiers, such as Little Nemo, that he's calling out to, they are very recognizable, but they function on their own. So I was immediately drawn into this literary history of a character who recurs in transformed ways.
Who is Promethea? Is that too much to ask?
I don't
at
know.
this
How
point?
much do you want them to know? Okay,
what you know now is just the beginning.
great.
So go ahead.
So by the way, one of these great things about a really talented writer is that Alan Moore tells a complete story in the first issue, enough to hook Matt, and a complete mini arc in the first 3, enough to make me feel like I'm telling you all about Promethea when I have 30 issues of mind expanding that I haven't gotten to yet.
I'm just here for Weeping Gorilla. But carry on.
Oh,
When did
Weeping Gorilla's
Prometheus start?
amazing.
When was this first?
I don't remember.
99?
99.
Was it
sounds about
99?
right. I'll
I
look
think
it up.
they all started
Carry on.
roughly-
I'll
Sorry, I didn't mean. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
No. It's so we are quickly introduced. The first thing you see in the comic is a very frightened little girl in early 400s.
09. 99. Carry on.
Alexandria, Egypt, and what what I love about Alan Moore comics is that it took me a long time to get to the first page because a couple panels in, I stopped, Googled Hypatia to refresh my memory, and then kept reading. They call out to the example of a famous woman in history who was unfortunately killed by a mob during some religious conflicts in the early 400s. So she was essentially, she was a scientist, but a pagan because the time and place and where she came from. And she was advising anyway, this is just a toss-off reference in Alan Moore that got me very distracted, but she's really cool, look her up. We meet a little girl who
It's making me so happy.
is in early 5th century Egypt and loses her father, who is also sort of a hermetic figure, to like a mob, and goes running off and meets her new home. And is this ruining it, or is it like...
No, you're not even like on page 6. Go ahead.
She is saved into the realm of gods and ideas. It is called the Immateria, and her name is Promethea. But she's going to pop up in art and writing in various places much closer to our present day, which have recognizable real-world analogs, but like you begin to piece together the history of the various people who have written about or interpreted her. And I loved that they put if she did not exist, we would have to invent her.
Yes.
And it's Voltaire, I think,
Yeah,
said
and
that about God is the thing.
And it is a character. It is a myth. Is a character that is so powerful in their imagery that to describe her is to invoke her in the material world. And so the very act of creating art that glorifies her makes her real, and she comes out and fights monsters.
Yay! That's a much more elegant.
Well, I mean, you got me there.
Yeah.
Well, but there's an that's so religious in a lot of ways, like so religious, like and mythological, and I think we've talked about it on the show before, but I believe it's the Hindu belief of like the tulpa and the thought form.
Oh yeah,
you know
they get into that.
Oh, I can't imagine that they wouldn't. I feel like they have to, but like the thought, like my favorite thing is when they said she is a story, and it's like she's a hero who's a story.
Yes,
that's the best thing ever.
Yes,
like
and it is
that
so
is
deep.
So fucking rad. Like, what a great idea.
So the girl who eventually comes to begin embodying Promethea and actually like bringing her into the world in this weird future that we live in, decides that she needs to understand more about this character, and part of this book is her understanding the history of the character and also understanding what the character's power is and how story works. And so at some point she ends up enlisting, and we'll get into this, sort of enlisting the help of this dark magician to sort of bring her through some understanding of magic and some understanding of the occult and some understanding of how stories function. And this leads to an amazing trip through the Kabbalistic system, an amazing trip through tarot symbolism, of just using comic books to break down these ideas in very succinct ways. And there's one particular issue, and this is my favorite comic book possibly that's ever been written. And this is The Magic Theater of the Mind, issue 12. And I want you to sort of take in what this is. So explain to everybody what's happening on this page, if you would. I mean, like,
this page?
Yeah. What do you get out of this page? There's an embryo at the bottom.
Yep. There's a series there's development happening. There's Scrabble tiles spelling out Promethea.
There's a tarot deck.
Yes, some cards with a back that looks very familiar because it's a variation on a symbol we've been seeing throughout the early issues.
There's an angel at the top right corner.
Oh, little cherub
There's
guy.
that grid from the very beginning, the black and blue grid from the apartment complex.
Oh my God.
There's Promethea, and she's having a conversation with her two snakes, with the two snakes on her caduceus, on her Mercury staff. What are the snakes saying?
So she says, let's see, you two snakes, Mac and Mike, have brought me to this theater of the mind to learn about magic. Am I right? What voices do they have?
I've always played
They're
with
green and red.
I'm Mike, he's Mac. One's front, other's back. These are the mind's high halls, dear child, with golden information tiled. Here is revealed for all to see the magic of reality.
Conversely, we may also view reality in magic, too. The universe's starry rash that burst from nowhere in a flash. The magic of this earthly ball. The wonder that we're here at all.
The blasting miracle of thought that all of this emerged from naught. To learn of magic is not hard.
Just pick a card. Pick any card.
Yes, it rhymes. It's in pen. And now flip the page.
Yay!
Now what's happening on this next page?
A bunch of Scrabble tiles that say metaphor.
They say metaphor. What? Isn't that interesting? Why does it say metaphor?
Metaphor-y. Oh, I know this card. This is the first of the major tarot cards.
We're going through every
card 0,
every card.
The Fool, which, by the way, looks like very simple cartooning, like Zippy or something.
And the baby has now emerged into a child.
I feel like you need to be in on this, because the child is going to transform.
And the child has grown into like a priest of. Is this
That
a
would be
callback to
Aleister
issue?
Crowley.
Oh, shit!
Oh. Ah.
And then the next page has tiles again.
And the line's getting all wobbly.
And the angel has moved slightly.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
More tiles.
More wobbly line
More
up
wobbly.
here. More cards. What's the
Little devil.
Mater, like Mother Hope?
Mater Hope.
Mater Hope.
Mater Hope.
A pert home. So, to cut to the chase of all this, and there's an image called Promethea Prime, so you can show everybody at home how complicated this is. There are multiple layers of things going on. There is, first of all, each card
Chemistry
is given,
gets into it here.
each card gives a title. The tiles themselves each give kind of a interesting little thought expression on the card itself. They are, of course, all the letters of Promethea. They're just anagrams of Promethea every time.
Oh my God.
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh my God.
The stories about each card all connect. Aleister Crowley is telling a joke page by page through his entire life as he lives and eventually, let me get to the end of this, and eventually dies at the very end
Spoilers.
at another Promethea. The angels and the devils slowly switch place. The chaos of the grid slowly breaks down. All of this happens. I also might add, I don't know if you've noticed that everything is a splash page. It's worse than that. It's one piece of art in a complete Ouroboros. It's a single piece of art that is entirely circular top to bottom, and the very last page has the snippets missing from the first page. There is no beginning and no end to this piece of art.
Her cloak. See her cloak?
Oh,
Yep.
whoa.
I tried at one point in my life to tile the outside of my room, the upper wall of my room, in this entire book in one perfect circle. And it is, the entire thing is also written in rhyme, and it is about each card as we go through. And the joke that Aleister Crowley is telling is the entire book takes. You have to read the entire book in trying to see the whole joke that is his life. There is so much in this. Oh my God! Oh, this book. Oh, J.H. Williams is a monster. And finally, I cut apart my first issue of this once I figured all this out. This was like kind of before I really had the internet. I didn't know. And then once I had sort of seen what was happening, I bought another copy, cut it out, and laid the whole thing down and was astounded. Just fucking and also astounded just by the brilliant information that is here about tarot symbolism and how much you can learn from it. It's an amazing.
This is one of the Marx Brothers,
That's
right?
yeah, Harpo.
Okay.
See what's the name of it?
I don't know what the Eon is. The Aeon?
It says Meet Harpo.
Ah! Meet Harpo was an anagram for Promethea. What? How? How?
What do they say about Harpo? Let's see about the new Aeon, about the Aeon card.
I don't recognize the name Aeon. Is it known as other names in other
Yes,
tarots?
they did it differently.
Okay.
It's ideas mankind will need, one fears. Sometimes in the next 20 years, 'tis the card 20 comes into play, the Aeon, once called Judgment Day. Apocalypse, as world's end seen, need only revelation mean. Our world of ideas set alight by information fierce and bright. Man's knowledge doubles, it appears, just less than every couple years. Man's last 2 years more breakthroughs see than all your previous history.
It's said by 2017 that doubling each half-second scene. Here information's flashpoint looms, its blaze reveals as it consumes. Men judge themselves in this new light. One world's view crash, the next takes flight. One aeon's burned by this knowledge flash, new consciousness born from its ash. Says Crowley, when not telling jokes, this aeon Hippocrates invokes. World's end is ruled then by his rod. Hippocrates, then the silent god. Meet Harpo.
Oh,
Harpo is the silent god.
in a completely weird coincidence, the callback they're making to like information doubling, I assume is meant to deliberately invoke the computer science principle that for a long time, every
Moore's Law.
18 months. That's what I was just gonna say. It's called Moore's Law. That's a coincidence.
That's a coincidence.
But I can assume nothing. It's a different one.
I also-
But let's like.
I should also
called Moore's Law.
point out that, that Harpo in the card is covered in onks, and he's got his little horns going onk, onk.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like, oh, welcome to it. I love this book so much.
So
It's
yeah.
so many issues experiment on this level. J.H. Williams is one of those artists who has experimented with the form of comic panels. His Batwoman run is a tour de force, and I know we're going to be running out of time, and I'm just going to say Alan Moore has done a lot more than just comic books, and we've just talked.
We didn't talk about From Hell.
We didn't talk about From
I haven't
Hell.
read it yet, so that'll work out.
I love From Hell, and it's really if you're a fan of Jack the Ripper, From Hell is one of the best
got
novelizations of Jack the Ripper I've
About
ever read.
70 some odd pages in.
It's a thick book.
It's a thick.
Did you read any of the liner notes in the back?
No.
Prepare.
No, I did not. But like, it was so funny. Like, I remember like I got to around page 40 and was like, man, how much more is this? And I like clicked just a quick tap where it gives you the page count at the top of the Comixology, and it was like 800 pages, and I was like, oh, I'm not finishing this one anytime soon.
He also wrote a book called Lost Girls, which
Haven't read it yet.
is really good, is really heavy. It is also, there's only one image that I even put in the box because it is basically pornography. I mean, like, it is a book about an adult version of Alice from Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and who's the third one? It's Alice, Dorothy, and Wendy from Peter Pan, meeting as older women, as adult women at a hotel, and kind of sharing their experiences. Is that all these fanciful stories that we know them for were actually metaphors for like intense sexual experiences. And some of them darker than others. As one brilliant review, and I wish I could remember, is Only Toto Gets Out Unscathed.
I'm very curious to eventually sit down with that book, but that is definitely, and he created it with his wife Melinda Gebbie.
They were not married at the time, and he said there's no better way to get to know somebody intimately than to create pornography with them. And they became close over the years of creating this book. It is brilliant. It is beautiful. It is definitely very adult and not for everybody.
Another very adult book of his is Neonomicon. It's only 4 issues. I love me some Lovecraft. I love me some tales spun out of Lovecraft's universe. And I read that before I started Providence. I've only read like 3 or 4 issues of Providence, and I'm enjoying it. But Neonomicon it's twisted.
I haven't read that one. I read a preview thing, and the art was not doing it for me. But
the first issue was, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then by the end of the second issue, I was like, I'm going to finish this because I have to. Yeah.
Dodgem Logic is another magazine that he was publishing for a while, which I was a big fan of. It's kind of what if Alan Moore did heavy metal,
and by heavy metal you mean the magazine, not the music.
Not the music. They're very fun. They're again very adult, but like a fun, interesting. If you find yourself really in the mood for more, Dodgem Logic is a really fun read and has interesting articles. Sometimes they do crafting. It's all over the place. He's also written novels. One of my favorite, Voice of the Fire, which is a really interesting novel, which is a series of disconnected stories from one place mixed out of time. So that the first, actually, if you could pass me the Red Book of Doom there. Yeah, I'm trying to like burn through a lot. The very first story in this book takes place, reverse, and is the hardest one to read. It's the one, like, if you can get through it, I highly recommend you keep going. Is 4000 BC, and the point of view character doesn't have tense yet,
So the entire chapter is written without tense, which is kind of heavy. It's way off to sunset down is sky come like as fire. Like it's a rough read.
Oh, whoa.
But it's worth it because slowly he builds the metaphysical history of one spot on Earth through time. It's really fascinating.
Oh.
Alan Moore, big nerd.
Big nerd.
I love it.
And then he also makes some audio. I sent you an audio thing. I don't know if you ever had
I
time.
haven't listened to it yet.
He's done audio and film projects that are really worth checking out. They're all over the place. Moon and Serpent, the Moon and Serpent Grand Egyptian Theater of Marvels is a great audio play of his that I would highly recommend. Audio play is a rough term for it. It's an audio painting. He uses where it's like a poem. He paints some interesting ideas. He talks a bit about the idea of meta narrative, and he wouldn't use that word, but of ideascape. He does an angel, a demon, and a god invocation. He does an invocation to Glycon, which is
Who's Glycon?
oh boy,
Hail Glycon.
Hail Glycon. In kind of, and I don't want to speak for him, but I will say in a slightly Discordian sense, Alan Moore, at one point, he's a practicing magician and occultist, and
Side note, we've mentioned it before, but in the Buffy comics, there is an offhanded reference to the Great Bearded Wizard of Northampton.
yes,
Which I have now adopted forever as my way of referring to Alan Moore.
he is the
Continue.
Great Bearded Wizard of Northampton, and Glycon was sort of this very late Roman god, and the history of this god is definitely very iffy. I highly recommend looking into it. Like it was a giant snake with long blonde hair. And Alan Moore found this very delightful and decided to be a worshiper of Glycon. And
I read somewhere that it was almost done in an ironic sense, almost like jokingly, like,
All-
no, I
all-
worship Glycon now.
yeah, it definitely was.
he,
But like
he means it.
all
but he-
all
you
good
tell when
all good
Alan Moore is
magic is
joking?
slightly ironic.
Does
the beard-
Alan
the-
Moore know when Alan Moore is joking?
I think the beard has taken sentience and now controls him like Brainiac.
Yeah, it's the
in his
Brainiac brain.
Superman
He was
story.
trying to
beard.
tell us all along.
All along, he's been trying to reach us. The beard is Brainiac.
Good occultism is a little cheeky. Is any Discordian or subgenius definitely can.
You're just describing yourself right now.
I am, and definitely, I'm always a big fan of a joke disguising itself as a religion, or religion disguising itself as a joke. Can hardly be one without the other. But Glycon is, the Glycon, there's an invocation to Glycon in the Moon and Serpent Grand Egyptian Theater of Marvels that is beautiful. It is a beautiful, stunning invocation. If you like that kind of thing, I play this audio clip, by the way. Leaving Burning Man, you have to sit in line for hours in your car. You sit in your car
It's like
in
at
the dark
least 4 hours.
for at least 4 hours, if not longer.
Yeah.
And one person takes the wheel and everyone else sleeps. And while you all sleep, every year, while you all sleep, I play the Moon and Serpent. And I'm just sitting hoping that I'm ruining everybody's ability to have a comfortable dream.
You more than likely are.
Yeah, this is my post Burning Man decompression as Alan Moore every year. It's a beautiful thing. We should probably
Start wrapping up.
or like talking to chat for a second. I feel like I've been
there's so
abandoned
much
them.
we haven't gotten to.
There's so much. I mean, like it. There's so much. There's so much. But yeah, I'm glad. Of any issue. Like I did not bring that Promethea issue. You brought it.
I've picked up some single issues of
puppet
Promethea
on
I've been meaning to
Glycon.
get to. Wow.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
What are we looking at?
I don't know where you found God Puppet of Glycon, but that's quite pleasing.
Is it a book? Is it an art piece? What?
Oh. Rob would be okay with that.
So,
Yeah, so I happened to, I was like, oh, I should bring one of these single issues that I
Thank you,
haven't gotten
Stargazer,
to
yes.
yet as a good example of J.H. Williams' art. Yeah, that'll do it.
that'll
just,
definitely do it.
just take a nice, if we can grab a close-up of this.
Yeah, and there's
Wow.
definitely like yeah.
Incredible.
Incredible.
Thank you. Someone mentioned that there are definitely like some heavy weird sex in Promethea. That there absolutely is, and definitely be prepared for a few sketchy things. But it's worth it. I mean,
He's
like
such an interesting dude, and he's got a history of doing things where I really wish he had made different choices, but he's also got a history of like an early job that he had. He quit drawing a comic strip for a paper because they ran an anti-gay editorial.
Yeah.
This was in the 80s. Like, so he has strongly like passions and perspectives that I agree with, but he also has stuff like, I'm not sure I can get into Providence because I've heard about things that happen in it that I just don't think I ever want to get to.
Apparently, like, Neonomicon is somewhat related to Providence. I'm not sure what the relation is, but
Some stuff goes down
you
in Providence that
probably
has
don't
been
want to
pretty
read
clear, like,
Providence. Like, if
Thanks, Phoenix, yeah.
Neonomicon is any barometer for that, your mileage will vary to not liking it. Probably is my guess.
Yeah,
Because
you have to. I mean,
Neonomicon
like,
was interesting for like someone who loves Lovecraft, but that was it was horrifying in a way that I don't know that I enjoyed.
there is. I will say there's definitely like there's a sequence in Promethea that is what I will call a consensual exchange of sex for information. That definitely happens. That is weird and a little creepy, but like everybody's into it, so it's happening, and like you know, it's and like is definitely a thing that you go into there, and is very in line with the sort of book that it is.
We'll just do this once a year, and we'll keep reevaluating all this work in Legacy. We'll see.
Well, I mean, like, this is what I do for so many books is every year go back and be like, how much weirder has it gotten now that I'm a year older? And sometimes a lot weirder, sometimes not so much. But that's the great thing about art that's finished, about like the idea of going back and looking at past art is I'm so delighted by how quickly culture shifts these days. It's really pleasing. Normally, we would have to be long dead before anybody. There was a time when we'd be long dead before anybody thought any of this was weird. Now we literally get to live to see everything get weird and awkward. It's pleasing.
Are you ready for our 5-minute
No.
one-shot topic?
I'm so scared to see what y'all suggested today.
It's really
Liz looks way too happy.
It is.
Hold on.
It is
Hold on,
legitimately
I'm
a fun
suiting
one.
up.
Yeah,
for
let's
this.
suit up for
Oh,
this.
we suit up. How do we look? All right.
Now that we have
We
our
look
armor
comfy.
on.
All right. The topic is. It comes from Alpha. Lady Amphi. Pick
Hey.
a comic book character and plan a birthday party for them. What's the theme and who would be their birthday cow?
Oh, thank
So
God,
what-
we got Happy Alan Moore.
So while you guys are thinking, you guys can go ahead and start the clock. Hey everybody, we're the Wednesday Club. You can catch us on the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel every Wednesday night at 7. And our topic is from Lady Amphi, pick a comic book character and plan a birthday party for them. What's the theme and who would be their birthday cow? Do you guys have an answer? I'm ready. I can go. I can
Go.
do this.
I'm not ready.
Okay. My answer, Wolverine. I can't hear in this thing. Wolverine. Wolverine needs a great birthday party. The
Yes.
dude, he's dour. He's, hey, bub. I love Wolverine best when he lets a smile sneak in. Like, he's like, oh, there is joy in that old heart. Aw, like that old 1880s, 200, almost 200-year-old heart. And he would, I would do a This Is Your Life themed birthday party where I would just try to get every single person that he forgot due to Weapon X to come back and be at this birthday party and remind him of
You would just, oh my God.
like of the good person that he actually is. Like, yeah, he does terrible things and he's the best at what he does, even though what he does isn't very nice. But he's still a good guy. Like, deep down, he's still kind of a good guy, right?
gets to
And he
cut
needs to
and
be
serve his own cake.
reminded of that. And the birthday cow, Nightcrawler. Because he could bamf in, be the magical birthday cow, bamf over here, here's the cake, bamf over here, here are streamers, bamf over here, here are gifts, bamf over here, here is Mariko. So here's your girlfriend, like, here's your daughter, here's your son Dakin, like, here, they are all here.
And they could get Dakin out of there because no one really wants him around anyway.
Yeah, then he'd be like, goodbye, Dakin, bamf, bamf, bamf,
right.
over the Atlantic.
All right,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
My birthday party would be, I think, you know who needs a birthday party? Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman needs a
All
birthday
right.
party.
All right.
But I think an interesting Wonder Woman birthday party would be, and this is weird because, you know, you'd want to give her like a break off of her duties, but I think a really fun way to throw a birthday party for Wonder Woman would be to actually just get a bunch of kids and basically be like, you are going to celebrate your birthday by throwing a birthday party for these kids. And she would get all the kids, and it would basically be like all the kids were going to participate in sort of training field games, like safer versions of what she would have done as a child. So she would get to like
Nerf
demonstrate
Themyscira.
some like, Nerf Themyscira.
nerfed
That's
Amazonian
exactly what they would
exercise.
do. she would get to sort of teach them a little bit and walk them through some exercises and then just eat tons of cake. And they would teach her like little modern traditions of like the things that they love about birthdays. And they would make her wear a hat, you know, and like blow on a thing. By the way, it's Taliesin's birthday. Whenever you're watching this, go ahead and tweet at him.
man.
So yeah. And then, like, after once she was tired of, like, you know, hanging out with all the kids, you would then just take her off and let her do something just wildly self-indulgent and maybe, like, just grant her some, like, alone time. So she would have the most, like, getting to be Wonder Woman for all of these kids and give them a birthday party to celebrate her birthday and then, like, just stock her up with treats and a movie or something like that.
Birthday cow.
And who would be her birthday cow?
I got my thought, but I want to hear yours.
Do you
who
need a
would
second? Do you need to go? So while you think
no,
of your
either way.
birthday
No, like who would who's your? You can pick this.
I
for
want to see Batman and the birthday cow. You know.
Batman is
Yep.
the birthday cow. Bat
and
cow.
he could fly in, and he would have like special like little birthday cow batarangs.
And it would make it so much better because he would have to appear for the kids and make the kids happy. And so her gift is watching Batman be
Birthday
Bat
cow.
cow for kids.
Bat cow
For kids.
Yes,
There is a
yeah.
real bat cow.
there is a bat cow.
Done and done. Go.
You got a minute.
Okay, mine's kind of dark. I will say though, I would really love to see a Doctor Who birthday episode. I think that would be very fun because he could be his own birthday cow. But
Oh my God.
yeah, there you go. Well,
Go. You have a minute. You have a
But
minute.
yeah, mine's kind of sad and depressing because I don't know it's me. I would like to see Moon Knight have a birthday because then.
Does Moon Knight now hold?
Well,
how
and then
old he
also,
is?
like if we were doing the old, since he had all the Avengers in his head for a while, he wouldn't even know who was or wasn't there. They would just all sort of be there.
He'd be
And-
like, "Thank you for coming to my birthday," and they'd be like, "I did."
wasn't.
And then he'd be
I
like, "You were
wasn't.
great."
And then his birthday cow would be Doc Samson because we're all trying to help him and he needs help and he needs to understand how he's hurting everyone and especially himself.
It'd be a birthday intervention.
It'd be a birthday
wow.
intervention
Oh,
with Doc Samson
wow.
as the birthday cow.
And where's the moon god Khonshu?
Khonshu is sadly like not there. He's not helping.
No, he provides like the weird miracle that makes it actually a special birthday at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be. Yeah.
A very special birthday for
Very
Moon
special
Knight.
You're getting
birthday.
All right.
With
That's
Huge
been-
thanks to Manzi the Young. Is that-
Manzi the Young,
who made
who made
Manzinator on
these?
Twitter. Lockjaw Beast, Kid Loki.
Kid Loki.
But from all of us here at the Wednesday Club at Geek and Sundry, Matt Key, Amy
Amy
Dallen,
Taliesin Jaffe.
come join us every Wednesday. Thank you.
Oh, that was a great one, Lady
I think that
Effie.
was-
Thank you.
Wow. That
And
was a
like
good one.
with an episode on Alan Moore, we found like the happy question.
I still like the Alan Moore on The Simpsons when he's reading Little Lulu.
Thank you for
Oh my
sending
God,
that.
yes.
Little Lulu. I know. It was like, oh, that's the Alan Moore that's in my head.
Yeah.
It's just singing the Little Lulu theme song.
I love Bat Cow. I love that you said Bat Cow. I'm so excited that Bat Cow made it into that.
I'm very
cow.
pleased. I'm very pleased.
All right, so we've got to start wrapping it up. We've got like a minute left. Yeah.
Please send us your thoughts, your favorites. If you check out any of these stories, let us know what you think of them.
Don't forget to write us at the Wednesday Club at geekandsundry.com. We check that, and you know maybe one of your letters will be featured.
Spend some
on our
time
show.
in the Discord, and yeah, and I'm sorry that like a lot of these books are actually expensive, and I really feel bad. Like we're gonna try and get better about paying attention to what might be on sale one of these days to make your lives better. But these are books you can read for years. This is not.
And your
something you need
library
to
might have
binge.
them.
And your library.
Your library
Your
probably
library
definitely
probably
has
doesn't
them,
have
yeah.
Lost Girls, but
No, it definitely does not have life.
But I bet it has Watchmen. It probably has several.
Probably has a lot of
incarnations
stuff. And
Watchmen.
remember,
I once
Alphabet
lived in an
Club.
apartment with 3 roommates, and we all owned our own copy of Watchmen. One
Yep.
of them didn't even read comics, but he was like, "Well, I mean, I got this. This one's great." I was like, "Well, yes, it is."
And Alpha Book Club is doing Watchmen, and CB Girl 19.
Yeah.
Like we've got a bunch of friends reading Watchmen right now. You should totally check it out. It'd be worth your time.
Yay!
Do we want to say what we're doing next week so people can?
Sure.
So we're
Yeah.
going to have Whitney Moore on
Woo!
once more, one of our favorites.
It's just a more to more kind of transition.
Oh, Alan Moore to Whitney Moore. A to and a W.
Yep. A and W.
Whitney.
The classic soda pairing, Alan Moore and Whitney
Whitney
Moore.
Moore.
A and
Please
W.
make that label. Okay.
But we're going to be talking post-apocalyptic comics.
It's gonna be
next
fun.
week. It's going to be super fun.
I got a
The
couple I'm excited
end of the
for.
world
Same.
as we know it.
I feel fine.
And I feel fine. Anyway, from all of us here at the Wednesday
Stay tuned
Club.
for Minds and Crafts.
Stay tuned for Minds and Crafts.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Taliesin.
Thank you.
See you next week.
See you next week.